issues. And oh, yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to the end of the week. We like to call it Friday. We got a sound effect for that. Hit it, man. Friday. Yes, we are. We're there. End of the week. Congratulations. And JP on the board. Hey, man, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. You guys held the fort yesterday?
It was fun.
Yeah, that's good.
I think the audience enjoyed it.
I can tell by the text message that I'm looking at streaming through here.
Yeah, we got a lot of good texts.
Yeah, good deal. Well, I enjoyed my time in New York City again, the Big Apple, up there with CNN. May or may not be going back next week. They've asked me to, but we're having to work on other scheduling issues first to make sure that I'm clear. But it was a lot of fun. It was spicy.
I thought that was one of your better appearances on. I love the receipt pulling on air. So I thought it was good. But then again, I mean, the Republicans have the logical argument and this government shutdown.
Well, there's that. We'll talk about it in more detail. In the meantime, let me tell you what we got laid on for today, because today's show is going to run itself, man. So coming up, because we got scheduling issues here, we're going to move some things around a little bit. Coming up at the top of the or the beginning of the first or second hour, I'm going to get my head straight. Beginning of the second hour, we're going to jump into some JP on sports. So, yep, Friday segment, you know the deal. JP on sports, beginning of hour number 2. And then halfway through hour number 2, we didn't get to do it yesterday because we're not here. So we're going to have some Butters and Lee time. Butters and Lee coming up halfway through hour number 2. And then at the beginning of hour number 3, we'll have a discussion with Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall, who is not only our longest serving and very conservative Attorney General, he is also, oh, by the way, a candidate for U.S. Senate. So we'll talk to Attorney General Steve Marshall coming up at the beginning of hour number 3. And then I've got a triple dipper, which may or may not even happen the way things are laid out today. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, Trump world. Oh, man. Yep, we got some Trump world news, some of which is like being updated like as we speak. So I'll tell you about things that are happening in Trump world. Stand by for that one. Number 2, if we can get to it, is going to be military minded. Actually, it's not. It's going to be woke wars. So yeah, number 2 on the Triple Dipper is woke wars, like things that are happening that are actually like we're pushing back, like we're scrapping, like we're trading blows in what I would call the woke wars. And I got some interesting dynamics to tell you about. And then the last one, listen, we touched on this a little bit last night on CNN. I thought that's a worthy topic. Canceling comedy in America. Are we through with cancel culture? Is it okay to have like a comedian actually do their routine and not be like thrown off the network? I don't know. But you know what? Dave Chappelle was actually in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, yes, he was. And he said it's easier to speak in Saudi Arabia than it is in America sometimes. And it's not because of the government. It's really because of the left. So yeah, we'll talk about canceling comedy in America, if we can get to it, as number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue. And I'll just remind you guys that, as always, attorney Stan McDonald is indeed the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way. Stan McDonald, 30-year practitioner of law in North Alabama and daily sponsor of the Rightside Way. All right, let me just jump in by saying I know that I'm dating myself here when I say this or ask this question, but did you ever watch some of the old black and white sitcoms? Andy Griffith, Beverly Hillbillies, Leave It to Beaver. Man, I did all the time. We were talking about like classic humor, like timeless characters. Remember on Andy Griffith, the 2 old sisters who had the moonshine still. Remember them? Andy and Barney could not figure out where Otis the town drunk kept getting his whiskey. Well, it was Papa's recipe. For medicinal purposes only, you understand. And then, of course, there's the Beverly Hillbillies. And Granny, she had her still out by the cement pond. Granny had her still and was always on the lookout for the revenuers. That was those government men that were going to swoop in and put the kibosh on her moonshining. As far as I know, though, June Cleaver was never cooking up moonshine in the garage. But hey, who knows? But that stuff was real, though. It was. They were making jokes about it, but that moonshining, that was real. I mean, It's part of the history of like NASCAR, right? NASCAR was the boys that would soup up old sedans, fill them with homebrew, and outrun the law on the back roads. There's a road I know of in North Alabama, not far from where I'm sitting right now, called 6 Foot Road. 6 Foot Road. Legend has it years ago, it was the hub for a bunch of good old boys in the shine business. And if you were found out there when you weren't supposed to be, you could end up 6 foot under. And so, yes, the road is called 6 Foot Road. I have a friend who spent years in state law enforcement. He busted many a moonshine operation. There was actually one in Northeast Alabama. It was so well known and so highly used, they just put a drive-through window into their old shack in the woods. People drive through, pay, take their shine with them. I could say the family name, but I won't because they're still around, and I won't mention them on the radio, but they knew my law enforcement friend by first name. So yeah, revenuers, the G-men, the government boys. But that was also illegal activity, right? I mean, in the end, it makes sense that law enforcement had to do something. You can call them the revenuers, but they were actually the government going after what was illegal. That's what they're there for, right? But what if the G-men, though, wanted to come get into your business without any indications of illegal activity? No probable cause, if you will, no warrants, no court of law intervening to assure that you have due process. What if they could just snoop around through your records and see all of your ATM transactions, whether it be personal or business, and every time you bought milk and bread, every time you went out to dinner, every time you used your credit card, put money in a savings account, plan for retirement, doesn't matter. Well, I got news. That's what the left wants to do, and they want it badly. Here's an example. Remember this? Not so long ago when Biden's Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, said that the IRS was woefully underfunded and they needed more auditors. Biden and the Democrats tried to hire 87,000 new IRS agents. See, the left are firm believers that the IRS should have mandatory reporting from your bank on even the lowest level deposits and transactions. I'm not talking about declaring your income for the purpose of taxes. I'm talking about them snooping through everything that you've ever spent money on or received money for. Get a refund from Amazon? Got to report it. Deposit that $50 your friend repaid you? Report it. Spend $75 on your daughter's birthday present? Report it. Look, just a couple of years ago, with control of the House, Senate, and the auto pen, we saw one of the most awful pieces of legislation ever proposed, which would have allowed for the greatest invasion of privacy ever conceived, much less acted on. It was a bill that Democrats were proposing that would have required every bank in the United States to provide complete reporting to the government of all transactions from every account at every bank for every person or business that had a gross flow of dollars per year of at least $600. $600. That happens in a day. I mean, basically, if you put at least $600 a year into your checking account for any reason, the IRS would be required to know it and track it. It was so bad that even the Democrats began to realize what an overreach it was, and it finally withered on the vine and didn't pass. But the fact that they wanted to do it at all was galling. And pray tell, what would they have done with it? Why then would they need such invasive tracking of every penny you earned or spent? Pray tell, ostensibly to plus up the revenues and allow the government to, in Secretary Yellen's words, be more productive. But look, don't think they've let it all go. I say that to say, be warned, because they still think that way. Just because Biden's not in charge does not mean they still dream of the day of getting into your bank account, rooting through there and figuring out why you have ATM transactions. Yeah, there's some on the left who still let their inside words become their outside words, like liberal hack Joy Reid, the former MSNBC host who recently went on one of the subprime networks and cried racism if Republicans are allowed to lower your taxes. Reid was serious. She warned, and here's her quote. She said that conservatives, in her words, have a goal of forcing the country back to the early 20th century, if not the 19th, based on the desire for what she calls a hierarchical past with white men on top. She warned that part of what conservatives hope to restore includes not only a racial hierarchy, but also a rollback of business regulations. Well, yeah. But she says that bottom line is, as she doubled down on stupid, that one of the reasons, this is her quote, one of the reasons that there were no income taxes back in the day and there was no regulations on business, you could earn as much money as you want. You could leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes. That's what the world that they want back. Well, you think? I mean, do you hear what she's saying? She described utopia. No taxes, keep what you earned. My gosh. Reid sees the lowering of taxes as being dangerous. that somehow it's racist and un-American to make it easier for folks to earn a living and keep more of what they earn, and even horror of horrors to leave it to your own children. I'm telling you, the left would tax us into oblivion if they could. And you watch right now with Zohran Mamdani trying to become the mayor of New York City with a $12 billion annual budget. He's going to spend it all on social programs and prove to you that government does it all. And he's going to need more of your money to do it. And then, oh, by the way, the person who's looking at replacing Chuck Schumer, we think it's going to be AOC. Well, she's a huge fan of Zohran Mamdani. So where do you think the Democrat Party's going? You see, the left will weaponize the revenuers because the left believes that government is the solution to all things, not the private sector. Therefore, the left believes, naturally, that the government needs more of your money so the government can do more of the things that the left believes it ought to do. It wasn't so long ago, right here in Alabama, a good friend of mine was a target of a weaponized IRS. You may recall the story in 2011, Becky Garrettson, who's been on this show multiple times and now runs the Alabama chapter of the Eagle Forum, a nonprofit conservative policy group. She used to be the head of the Wetumpka Tea Party. Well, they applied for their 501c3 status and it was delayed and then it was denied, simply because Obama bureaucrat Lois Lerner chose to weaponize her IRS office for partisan purposes. Becky wound up making national news when she was called in to testify before Congress. Much more recently, I had another friend on the show from Texas. Her name is Bunny Pounds, and she's the president of a Christian nonprofit called Christians Engaged. It's designed to encourage Christians to be active in politics and community efforts. Doesn't even name parties. But the IRS actually denied her nonprofit status at first in writing, because in the words of the IRS, they said that Bible studies are more often affiliated with Republicans, and therefore her group was considered partisan. And it took threats of legal action to get the IRS to actually recant. Okay, so what would the IRS do if it could access everything with no cause? Like no warrant necessary, just root through your checking account. If someone's cheating on their taxes and they have probable cause to believe it, well, okay, subpoena the records, you can do that. But if they can access the data they want, when they want, from whomever they want without your protections or knowledge, and then combine that with their history of abuse of process, we would be looking at unprecedented levels of government retaliation against everyday citizens for reasons that unelected bureaucrats have at the time, just whenever they feel like it. Don't like the looks of that series of legal deposits in your account? Well, I'm sorry, we will audit your whole life now. Don't like that political stance of your business? I'm sorry. You appear to be in jeopardy of losing your business license because you're too partisan. You buy too many gun supplies? Scrutiny. You must be a militiaman. Did you donate to certain charities? Let's investigate the charities while we're at it. All the jokes about revenuers? Well, those were tongue-in-cheek because most folks know that law is still law. But those jokes had a grain of truth in it, really in all of it. More than a grain, really. It's like a whole bumper crop of big government overreach. This is an invasion of privacy. The big hand of government having oversight over the smallest aspects of your life, and this is wrong on so many levels. Meanwhile, the tax dollars that we already send to D.C., they get bound up in a political stunt called a government shutdown. So good people who do pay their taxes and do everything right can't even get the benefit of their existing government services or their paychecks. Make that make sense. So yeah, they want more of our dollars, but they can't even decide how to spend the ones they got. It's madness, and yet we are the ones forced to feel the brunt of it. And I'm telling you, folks, it's a hot mess. And the left is determined to get more of what you've got. So I say, look out, folks. Here come the revenuers. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, there it is. I mean, I'm looking at this government shutdown and thinking, you know what? You were just recently trying to get more of our stuff, trying to dig more into our bank accounts. And right now, you can't even begin to pass a budget or a continuing resolution so that we can keep the government open. And yet you want to see inside our bank accounts? Stop it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, folks, you're going to enjoy this one. I just had a conversation with Brian Dawson from 1819 News, president and CEO of an up-and-coming company that is making a huge splash in the state of Alabama. But listen, you're going to be amazed by his personal story. Brian Dawson, you talk about rags to riches. You talk about somebody who's been redeemed. You're talking about a guy who is looking at life in prison, who now has an amazing family, an amazing life, an amazing testimony of how the Lord has redeemed him, and who is, oh, by the way, making a huge difference in our state. Stay tuned. Just Right podcast coming up next. Yeah, let's do a show.
1, 2, 3, hey!
Brian Dawson, how you doing?
Doing good.
Good. I got notes, dude.
All right.
I'm gonna start with a sort of introduction. All right.
Hit me.
You was born and raised outside the state of Alabama. Spent a lot of your time in Colorado Springs. Am I right?
Yep. And Derby, Kansas. Those are the two places.
Does that make you a carpetbagger if you came from out west?
No, west is not north.
Okay.
So yeah, carpetbaggers only come from the north.
All right. So you're allowed.
Yeah.
You were a white suburban kid.
Correct.
But your parents divorced when you're young. I know that. I can relate to that. But then there's this period of your life. We'll talk about it in detail here in a minute. You've been very candid in some of the other interviews and discussions I've even had with you. Crime, drugs, drinking.
Sure.
And then there became time when you were even involved with drug cartels and other things and spent time in prison.
Yep.
At one point, I know you were facing like just short of 400 years potentially in prison. But then you found Jesus. You found a beautiful woman. You found purpose. You found parenthood like 7 times.
Correct.
And
It's the number of completion, Phil.
Oh, well, there you
They
go.
say perfection and completion.
Speaking of which, we're going to get to the initials of all your kids' names too, which is very cool. And then now it's radio, media, 1819 News, president and CEO. So let's start. All right, let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Early childhood, dude. How did you get to where you went?
Yeah. So interesting thing. I always like to, the more I learn about people and get to know people and everything, I realize who they are, where they're from, who their parents are matters a lot. And I also think, well, I'll just kind of go into that. So my dad is from West Monroe, Louisiana. He is a swamp redneck. He grew up with Phil Robertson.
Duck Dynasty.
Duck Dynasty, okay.
Yeah.
Phil was about 7 years my dad's senior, and so Phil was the camp counselor at Camp Chioka in Louisiana. And so, my dad was like 10 and Phil was like 17 at the summer camp or whatever. But my grandma, Memu, as we call her, Betty Dawson, taught Sunday school with Miss K for 30 years at Whites Ferry Road Church of Christ in West Monroe, Louisiana. So I say all that because it's neat on one hand that my family is close with their family or whatever, but also to give you, like, everybody knows the Robertsons and the swamp redneck thing, right? Like, they're swamp rednecks with money. But prior to them having money, there was a saying in West Monroe that the only people that were more poor than the Dawsons was the Robertsons. Okay, and the Dawsons was po, like they were super poor. Okay, I would joke and say
They changed that over time.
yeah, so they did. My dad not so much. That's okay though. Went the middle class route, but my dad, swamp redneck from Louisiana. Grew up. I always say back when poor people were skinny, had to hunt for food, garden, like so. That's that side of my family. And then on the other side, there's my mom. My mom, and we'll kind of get into a little bit more of her background later in the story as it's pertinent. But she was the daughter of a state senator in Colorado Springs specifically. And so my grandfather was a state senator. He ran for governor. He ended up running for Congress against Joel Heffley in Colorado. That was the only politics I was around for. All that happened before I was born, except for the run for Congress. And he has a country club background, right? And so you mix this swamp redneck with this country club, and this is where you get this amazing pedigree that sits before you.
Had this sort of Romeo and Juliet feel to it.
Yeah, I guess so. But that I really do think that plays a lot into who I am and how I go about things. But for better or for worse. But yeah, so they couldn't have been more different, and they got divorced when I was 2, right? Like who didn't see the writing on the wall with that one? So they got divorced when I was 2. Courts put me with my mom. That's kind of the knee-jerk reaction of the court system. At least it was back then. I don't think it's changed that much now. The knee-jerk reaction is give kids to mom. And had they have done any type of due diligence whatsoever and looked into the situation, they would have seen that was not the best place for me. And so when I was 2 years old, boom, I'm now living with my mom, seeing my dad every other weekend. And
where were y'all living then?
This was Colorado Springs. Okay. Yep. And so, my mom, God bless her, I love her. She did the best she could with what she had, right? And so I've worked through a lot of unforgiveness with my mom and with my dad, but just forgiving them and me thinking, oh, I've forgiven them, but it's like, no, really. And then once you've forgiven them, you can actually see the appreciation that they did everything they possibly could. Now that I have kids, I see. But my mom had a very rough childhood. Though she was from country club, lineage, she was sexually abused as a child.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades, y'all. That's what we're doing, pulling pins on truth grenades. Let me tell you about Stan McDonald. Oh, yeah. Attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. And listen, I'll be honest with you, not only will Stan advocate and fight for your legal needs and your rights, but he has been like in the trenches, in the mix, in the fray for decades on all the things that right-side ruffians care about, all the policies and politics from a conservative standpoint. That's Stan McDonald. But as an attorney, I will also tell you, he has literally represented his clients in thousands of real estate transactions. He can step in there for you and do a good job in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say, if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend, and likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So that being said, Attorney Stan McDonald, the law firm is Wilmer and Lee. I'm going to tell you how to contact him. It's a phone number. You ready? Here we go. Stan McDonald. He's an America First family man. It's 256-533-0202. That's Stan McDonald, 256-533-0202. And oh, by the way, tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And no representation made, the quality of legal service is ever bad, especially on a Friday. It just came out. I don't know how to explain that one, but okay. Hey, let me jump on the phone real quick before I run out of time because he held on during the break. That would be Scott from Athens. Scott, how you doing?
Good afternoon, Colonel.
I'm good.
Hey, I don't want to hold you up because I know you guys are busy. I just wanted to make one comment about the government shutting down.
Yeah, man.
And I'm not for shutting the government down, but I can be.
Yeah, you can be.
The thing I'm tired of hearing is all the whining and crying about who it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
Now, I have been involved in government shutdowns when I was on active duty military, and I can tell you one thing: I never hurt financially, and I believe that if we're truly, honestly going to have a government shutdown, okay, there should be nobody in Capitol Hill. They should all go home on both sides of the aisle. I could care less. Both of them go home on both sides of the aisle. No pay. If Private Joe Snuffy is going to have to wait to be paid, so can those folks up on Capitol Hill. All this is they're strongholding our country, and they use this government shutdown as a bunch of hooey.
I agree, man. Listen, by the way, just so you know, U.S. Senator Katie Britt from Alabama just asked the comptroller of the Senate to hold back her pay. She does not want to get paid during this.
God bless her.
Well, good enough, man. Hey, we're going to break. Scott, thanks for hanging on and jumping on the phone with us. All right, buddy. Take care. I appreciate your service. Listen, I think we're going to hear more and more of that. People are like, okay, look, you know what? We'll feel the pain with you, but you don't get paid either. I mean, that does kind of make sense. All right, we're taking a break. We're coming right back. We're going to jump right on into some Trump world and talk about what happened on CNN last night as a part of it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Had all kinds of abuse and just horrible. And, so she had a lot of trauma in her life that she never dealt with. And so I'm living with her, and the solution to every problem that she has is another man. And so I ended up with like 5 or 6 stepdads. I lost count. Okay. Now I will say, I know there's no way you haven't seen the movie or read the book, Hillbilly Elegy.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that was my life to a T with my mom. That was my life to a T. We watched that movie, and my mother and I were like, this is like maybe 6 months ago, we watched the movie.
Together?
No. But I mean, I watched it. I was a wreck. My wife's looking at me. My oldest son, who's watched it with us is like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, it was a wreck. And I told my mom about it. My mom watched it. And she's like, oh my gosh. It was like PTSD watching it because it was so on point with that 2 to 10 years with my mom. And I always make the joke, me and JD Vance are the same person, except JD Vance, he got into the Marines and went to Yale, and I got into drugs and went to jail. But other than that, same person. But yeah, and so when I was, that went on, watching my mom get drunk, taking pharmaceutical drugs, I watched her get beat by some of the men that she was with, just not good formative years from 2 to 10, right? And so by the time I'm 10, I get into a big fight with my mom, and she, despite many court battles for my dad to get custody of me that he continued to lose, my mom just let go and said, you can go live with your dad. And so when I was 10, I went and moved with my dad, and he was living in Wichita, Kansas. He worked at Cessna for the bulk of his career in Wichita, Kansas.
So I got to tell you, and sometime I'll tell you my whole story, but I didn't wind up in jail, but I was headed there.
Yeah.
Parents divorced when I was young, lived with my mom, did not respond well to multiple marriages. Mom finally gave me the ultimatum as we had a big blow up. She sent me to live with Dad, who, by the way, was living in London, England, as an Army officer. And so I like to say God had to give me a 3-year timeout away from everything that I was used to for me to find him.
Yeah.
Of course, you had a 384-year timeout coming.
Potentially, yeah.
So let me ask you, you live with your dad. I researched before I sit down with you, and I'm watching other interviews you've done and stuff. And you said in one case that your dad's level of discipline and household, management was more what you needed, but you still wound up going down some roads.
Sure.
So you were, and I got to say, in going through all the news stories and things, your mugshot came up at some point.
A bunch, yeah.
And you were just a normal looking high school dude. You didn't have like body piercings and face tats, and you weren't doing gang signs in the mugshot. You just looked like a high school football player, which you were. Am I right?
Yeah.
But you also had this sideline gig of doing things that got you in big trouble.
Yeah. No, I'm an all in guy. Whatever I'm into, I'm all into it, and that's just the way I'm wired, and it was no different than that. And so, going to the structure that my dad provided, but me still falling, I think that was a great tee up. I've never thought about it in those terms, and it actually makes a lot of sense. So, I'm 10. I move in with my dad. He's still not a Christian to this day. So if you're listening, pray for my dad. But he put a roof over my head. He got up every day at 4:30 in the morning and went to work. He showed up to my football games. We ate dinner every night around the table. Okay. He was what he was supposed to be as a father, and he didn't have a father. His dad abandoned them, his siblings. So he never had a dad. And so the gaps that he was filling in were those real basic gaps that he completely lacked, which was the providing, the protecting, those type of things. And so he generationally fixed that, that basic blocking and tackling gap that a father is supposed to provide. But some of the areas where I'd say, and I don't mean this disparagingly, where he fell short, he's not a real good communicator where he can sit down and say, son, let me talk to you about manhood. Or, son, let me talk like that. Those weren't his things. He showed up and he did what he was supposed to do. And I'm very, very grateful that I had the time with him that I did. It definitely shaped and molded me. But when from 2 to 10, which they call formative years, those are formative years, right? And your formative years are not very formative. You carry baggage. And so I'm with my dad in this structure, carrying that baggage. And so I would get straight A's.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the Southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. I'm talking about this show. It goes like from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches in North Georgia, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And by the way, that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world, going to the World Wide Web, logging in on the live stream, looking in the studio, audio and video, seeing what we're wearing. Places like X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then there's all you podcasters that catch it after the fact. And I do this every time. I like 2 or 3 times a show for the very purpose of saying, wherever you catch this show, we can see it and we know it. And it blesses us, and we appreciate you more than you can possibly know. So thank you. You're the reason why we do it. By the way, I was talking to Stan McDonald, I think it was yesterday, and he said that he literally, the other day, he found himself going, Benning!
It's a nice little touch.
I don't know when that happened, but yeah, he said, I think he said, he heard me doing the thing, and I didn't do the Benning, and he said it out loud. He's like, he didn't say it.
That's funny.
Anyway, text lines are open 833-687-4448. That's 833-68 right. Text it, call it, same number for both. I'll get a few of these right now. Steve from Huntsville says, hey guys, why didn't JD Vance read the part of the bill that says it provides $1.5 billion on illegal alien health care while he had the microphone in the country's attention? Show that Chuck Schumer's lying. I don't know. I do know that Speaker of the House has been doing a great job on that very issue. And I can tell you where it is. It's page 57, section 2271, subsection E, I believe, of the Democrats' spending bill literally repeals all of the protectionist language that's supposed to prevent the abuses of what we often refer to as the California loophole in Medicaid spending. It's a mess.
He talked about that to the press in the White House press room yesterday for quite a bit. JD Vance did. So yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are definitely, listen, there's no reason why that provision would be in that bill except for that reason. There's nothing else it benefits. It just takes away the protective language that Republicans put in place with the big, beautiful bill that limits the ability of states to play fast and loose, make their money fungible. And like, okay, in fact, I'll just get in the weeds for a second. Here's what California does. For those of you who don't know, Medicaid is the state level version of like Medicare. It's government funded healthcare. And you know the deal. You have to qualify at a certain income level or whatever to be allowed to be in the Medicaid process. Okay. That being said, everybody can have, regardless of your status, even illegals, an emergency room is allowed to treat someone to save, life and limb. So if you have a true emergency, Medicaid's going to cover it, even though you might not be a citizen. Okay, here's what California does. Oh, by the way, go back to Medicaid dollars. The states spend something, but the states get what's known as a federal match. So a lot of money comes from the feds to help underwrite the ability of states to have Medicaid. And by the way, Medicaid is huge. It's like it's a Leviathan. In Alabama, I want to say that Medicaid alone consumes something like 28% of the general fund budget, something like that. California, among other states, but especially California, passed a state law that says, hey, in California, we're so cool, we're going to virtue signal our way into heaven by giving Medicaid to illegals. Any kind of Medicaid, all to illegals. We'll fund it. We'll use state dollars. Sure you will. Then here's what they do. Then they make all their emergency rooms more like free clinics. Illegal aliens walk in the door because they don't have a doctor. They go to the emergency room for a cold. Everything gets treated as an emergency. And so the first thing that happens is they walk in, they make the lines difficult, they swamp the ER, and then they get treated for anything and everything that's not an emergency. The hospital's then coded a certain way, so it gets sent in to federal. Do you know that I want to say the average state spends something like 5% of its Medicaid dollars on emergencies? California, 35%. Pray tell, why would that be? I said this last night on CNN, because they're playing the California loophole game. The liberals want language to actually repeal the ability of the federal government to scrutinize that and to say, you know what, you appear to be miscategorizing a lot of this, and we're not going to give you that money back. And that's what would happen to put all these states back in order.
But this is another area where the liberal politicians think the American people are too stupid to actually look into this, because and the smugness of people like Caitlin Collins that talking to Mike Johnson is like, well, actually, there's nowhere in the bill that explicitly says that illegal aliens are going to get Medicaid. But then it's like, okay, read between the lines and actually connect the dots. And
it's cause and effect.
Use some actual critical thinking. But then whenever that's brought up, they just move, like they try to deflect it, because like they don't expect the American people to actually look into it. They just tell them, well, the words illegal aliens getting Medicaid, or it's like, just because it's not explicitly written that way doesn't mean it's not happening.
That's why that was my favorite moment last night, among several, on CNN, was they were having that same conversation. And a lot of what I just said is what I said last night. But I had said on the show the other day, in fact, somebody even chimed in on social media and said, you said you were going to bring that receipt, and you did. I took one of my resources from the Dippers here that had a Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services saying they're having to investigate all this stuff. I took that with me. And last night on the show, when they were giving me the business about it, I said, well, I brought receipts.
Yep.
And then I laid it out, and they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And that's when Abby Phillip changed the subject.
Yeah, exactly. You can see her blankly staring at you like, oh, you weren't supposed to.
She had that keep a neutral face, but oh crap.
Yeah.
Look on her face. Yeah. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, you did an outstanding job on CNN last night. Thank you, buddy. He said, Joy Reid, a Harvard graduate, is the reason why I don't want them to send a penny of my tax money to Harvard, because if she's the product of the top Ivy League school in the nation, I would rather hire a high school dropout because I believe they would be much wiser. I would agree with that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's just unreal. Brian from Harvest says, why has there been no push to change this law back? Okay, what we talked about. What law is he talking about? It gives
the Modernization Act.
The Modernization. Okay, Brian, where are you coming from right now, buddy? Eliminate is well, Brian, it appears to me you are bringing in your own subject matter, not something I'm prepared to talk about. I don't even know what you're referencing, so I have to go back and look at this one. But you're bringing up an act that I'm not familiar with, and the only way I can comment on it is to know it. So there you go. Let's stay on topic. John from Huntsville says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Thank you, sir. Also, did you hear that crazy activist Greta Thunberg has been detained by the Israeli military? Okay, talk about changing the subject. But by the way, JP, I've already filled out my football picks. I chose Vanderbilt to win.
Of course you did.
I'm just thankful that Auburn has a bye.
Auburn does have a bye.
Auburn needs a bye.
Auburn needs a lot of things, but a bye is one of them.
That wasn't necessary. That was so uncalled for. That was actually spiteful. Joe in Tennessee says, Joyless Reid. Joyless Reid. Joyless Reid was always about giving money to lazy people and deplorable criminals and foreign terrorists that are in our country. Indeed. Penny from Athens says, I'm watching on Rumble. Glad. Good. Thanks, Penny. Appreciate it very much. Chris from Gadsden says, stop throwing all these facts and common sense. Well, it's just my way, man. It's just how I roll. Listen, we had another moment last night on CNN. I'm doing this little piece here. I mean, I'm not going to get very far into it. I can already tell because we're doing JP on sports here a little bit. But Trump world, there was a news story that broke right before the show today. So this is fresh. The U.S. military blew up another narco trafficking boat in the waters off Venezuela. Just vaporized it. Just made it go poof. Actually, it went boom, then poof. But the bottom line is it ain't there no more. I got a story here from the National Pulse. And JP, I'm going to call up that clip number 1 in a minute. Story on the National Pulse came out a couple of days ago. The U.S. is planning potential military strikes on drug traffickers inside Venezuela. Aha. Well, that's interesting. And it ties into what I said last night on CNN. Not that I have any deep prescience of what's happening inside the White House Situation Room, but I was asked last night how I felt about the fact that these boats are being blown up, and like another one today. And I had a response. You got that ready? I had a response last night about how I feel about it. You can probably imagine. Go ahead and play it.
Satisfied with this kind of explanation for the strikes, for this kind of offensive action in this region?
Friggin' right I am. The cartel's been at war with us for years. 187,000 people died in the last 2 years from drug overdoses brought in by the cartels. I think it's time to put a Tomahawk cruise missile into a drug lab in Colombia. I'm fine with that. The reality is there are 55 times more people that died in the last 2 years on drug overdoses brought in by the narco traffickers who are less than a non-state actor like Al-Qaeda. And they are literally killing our people 55 times greater than what we saw on 9/11.
But don't you think the president should go to Congress and ask for a declaration of war against the cartels instead of doing it this way?
Because he already has it. The War Powers Act gives him the authority.
So there you have it. That was part of the point last night. First of all, my point in this with the boats being blown, here's your narrative. When you're having those water cooler conversations at work, when you're standing in line at the fast food place or sitting in Sunday school and someone says, man, did you see that? They blew up another boat. Is that okay? Can we do that? Just go ahead and tell them, yeah, we can. The War Powers Act allows the president to take emergency action, military action even, against those who are doing harm to the United States or its citizens. He can. He does not have to go get a declaration of war from Congress for that. Now, there are times and places certainly where he would have to go do that, to declare war on a foreign nation and to go launch troops in. Typically speaking, would something that Congress would be involved in? In this case, no, and we're not there yet. By the way, there's not the Trump administration is not necessarily going to do like regime change here. But what we are looking at is the cartels have been at war with us for years, and in Trump world, what they're finally saying is enough is enough. We have had more U.S. citizens killed. In fact, the stat that I quoted a minute ago was 55 times more Americans have died in the last 2 years to narco trafficking drug overdoses than we lost on 9/11. And yet for 9/11, we went to war. I'm not asking to go to war. That's not my advocacy here. What I'm saying is we're already technically at war with a non-state actor. In other words, it's not like a nation. It's a terrorist organization. In this case, Trump has declared the cartels to be terrorists. And so he's taking them out. Don't bring any more of your goods. Don't bring any more of your crap. Don't kill any more of our people. Guess what? Stop your human trafficking. Oh, by the way, here's another, boat blown up in the waters off Venezuela. And the liberals are having a freak out about it, but they didn't mind. They didn't mind when Biden blew something up, which didn't happen very often, but it did. They didn't mind in the wake of the Abbey Gate bombing in Afghanistan, when Biden went and blew up a minivan full of a family and claimed that they were ISIS-K. So, yeah.
Obama, look at the drone strikes of Obama.
Obama's drone strikes were prolific.
You want to talk about, the liberals constantly claim Republican presidents are warmongers. Just go look at the stats of how many drone strikes in Yemen and other nations across the Middle East that Obama directed. He didn't declare war. He didn't have Congress write up a declaration of war. But the liberals, I wonder if they're upset in calling those war crimes just as much as they're calling this.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is we're not at war. You don't see the 82nd Airborne jumping into Venezuela. I don't know that we won't one day, but right now we're not. But what we are doing is we're saying, you narco traffickers, if you keep bringing your boats full of drugs, and we're just going to keep taking them out. And I hope that somewhere, some Pablo with a boat is going to go, not today. I am not sailing today.
What's funny is you think they think twice before doing this, but another instance, they keep going and trying to, come to the U.S. I don't know how many drone strikes does it take for them to go, okay, guys, let's hold off for a little bit.
Jose is not sailing today.
Wait till things cool down a little bit.
I don't know. We'll see, man. But bottom line is in Trump world right now, the bad guys are on notice. Now, I will say too, there's a lot more to this. There are stories that there is a discussion inside the White House about whether we would, in fact, strike drug traffickers. Like I said in my piece there on CNN about striking them inside the borders of a foreign nation. I don't know, man, but I'll tell you right now, if you can go to the core, and by the way, we don't have to make a big fuss about it. We don't have to claim it. Just something blows up and we go, reckon why that just happened. Do you mean the drug lab blew up in the jungle? Wow, that's cool. Wonder who did it. But what we're being told right now is, according to the National Pulse, the U.S. military is reportedly preparing plans to strike drug traffickers within Venezuela, with operations potentially beginning in the next few weeks. This development comes as part of the Trump administration's intensified focus on combating drug trafficking and addressing its concerns with the Venezuelan government under dictator Nicolas Maduro. More to come on this one, but I would say this. In Trump world, bad guys are sitting around going, oh, crap. That's where they are. And you know what? They should be. Take a break, JP. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
On the report cards, and I thrived in that structure, and I did good in sports, but underneath I was angry. And my stepmom would always tell me, she's like, you're so angry. Why are you so angry? And she didn't understand. And I was angry at the world. And I was never really comfortable in my own skin. I had a lot of insecurity issues, and the only time I ever felt comfortable in my own skin is when I drank and did drugs. And so I drank and did drugs a lot.
Sort of a self-medicating kind of thing?
I definitely think it was a self-medicating thing. And once I kind of dove into that, I became the life of the party. I created a fake ID. I've always been somewhat, innovative. Learned how to create a fake ID, and then I could go get everybody alcohol. So I was like the coolest guy, in school. I could go get everybody booze, and party, but like everybody else would like party and go home and be fine. I would drink to the point of blacking out and not remember what I did. And that would happen 2 or 3 times a week, right? Like I was like a wild party animal. And then that went on to the point where I started to do drugs. And same thing, whatever I do, I do it all the way. And that happened there. And
But you didn't just do it, you were selling them too, right?
yeah. And so how it started is, a little bit of weed, selling a little bit of weed, whatever. And then I would experiment with a little bit of cocaine or methamphetamines or ecstasy or whatever. And in that experimenting phase, I was still living in a suburb of Wichita called Derby, Kansas, with my dad. And
I got siblings, by the way.
So I've got, from my mom, I have a brother who has a different dad.
Okay.
And he's Brad, and he's 2 years, 2 months, 2 days older than me. Anyway, probably not pertinent to the story, but it's interesting. And then I have a stepbrother. When my dad remarried, he remarried a woman, my stepmom, who had a son that was my exact age. So we were in the same schools together growing up.
Okay, wow, yeah.
Yeah. And he was also into partying and doing things, and also found himself in prison at some point in his life. So, I always want to go down rabbit trails, and it's like, I'm not going to rabbit trail, I promise. So that experimenting with some of those more illicit drugs, I snuck out one night to do that, and I came home after sneaking out thinking that because what I would do is I would sneak out, my bedroom would be shut, my dad would just get up and go to work. Well, he, for whatever reason that morning, needed something, and so he came in my room, and I wasn't in there. He's like, So I got busted sneaking out, and he took me to get a drug test, and I peed hot for every single thing on the drug test, and he was like, oh, wow. And so we kind of locked horns over that, and he said, you need to quit football and go to rehab, which is a really big deal. My team ended up 6A in Kansas is as big as it gets. They don't have 7A there. Yeah. And we were predicted to be the 6A state champs, or at least going to state.
What position?
I was defensive end, and they were going to move me to nose tackle that year, which was really interesting. I was like 225 and ran a 4.840, but they wanted me inside. Anyway, I won't get into that. But yeah. So that was my I was really, really excited about my senior year, years and years of playing football, wanted to do that. And he's telling me I got to quit to go to rehab, or I can quit football and go live with my mom in Colorado again. And so I packed up all my stuff, my car, and I drove to Colorado. And that was the biggest mistake of my life.
So mine wound up being the most impetuous good decision I ever made, because I got caught sneaking out of the house. So I was drinking and smoking starting in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And mine wasn't self-medicating, I don't think. And it wasn't a lot. Yeah. But it was there. And I was hanging out with a bunch of pot smokers. And mine was more along the lines of, you said I can't, so I'm gonna. Yeah. You said I can't, so this is what I'm gonna do. Sure. And it was just like that live on the edge kind of sense, 4th grade though. Yeah. I mean, who does that at 11 years old? But nonetheless, Mom caught me sneaking out of the house in 7th grade again, and gave me the ultimatum. What do you want to do here? You want to go live with your dad? And I just went, yeah. I mean, that was it. There was no thought. There was no preconceived, I've been looking for this opportunity. There was no, I think this is a good idea. It was just get back at Mom. Yeah. And so I said, yeah. Just the opposite, though. Mine wound up being the best decision I could have made. Totally impetuous. Yeah. But I did it. So you wind up in Colorado, though, brother. Yeah. Colorado weren't good for you.
No, that's 2002. Go back to Colorado. Start, I was already about 3 weeks into my senior year in Kansas in my football season. So I uprooted and moved to Colorado, and then went to school sort of. Like I didn't hardly ever go to school. By the time I moved in with my mom, it was free reign. I could do whatever I want. But my brother was driving for a drug dealer. And so I would ride around with them and watch him. He'd have, stacks of cash. All the guys wanted to be him. All the girls wanted to be with him. Pounds of drugs, like, what's not to love, like this is, kind of the thing I'm infatuated with. And here's this guy doing this. And so I kind of went to work for him, selling a little bit of weed.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so we're in this segment here. I'm doing some stuff on Trump world. And listen, I made a comment last night on CNN that Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. And think about that. Why would he not? And it got just he got poo-pooed by all the
they're all like,
peace prize, peace prize. Unbelievable. And I pointed out, I said, Obama got it for being in office 6 weeks.
Essentially, yeah.
Well, speaking of which, we have breaking news right now. This is breaking news. It's like fresh. It's on the screen as I speak. You may recall that the Trump administration has been working hard to bring a peace plan together in the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. And we just got breaking news that Hamas has now announced that they are accepting some elements of the Gaza plan. Now, what is it? So first of all, they did agree apparently to release all hostages, which I look at it and think, do you realize in the next, like this weekend will be 2 years to the day.
In 4 days, it'll be 2 years.
Yeah. Since those, okay, so it'll be what? Is that Tuesday then? I guess it's Monday or Tuesday.
It's,
anyway, the 7th.
Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah. That these hostages have been held in Gaza tunnels. Unbelievable. But anyway, the peace plan has multi facets to it, and I'm going to tell you what they are. Number one, the war has to immediately end. Okay. Number two, all hostages, both alive and deceased, will be returned within 72 hours. In other words, we're not playing around. We're not doing this thing where you screw around and you bring one out a week, another one out 2 weeks later. None of that. All hostages. Israel will release 250 life sentence prisoners plus another 1,700 Gazans they're holding prisoners. So right there's almost 2,000 prisoners being held by Israel that will be released. Hamas members, and it says could be, it's not guaranteed, could be given amnesty. Hamas will not have any role in the governance of Gaza hereafter. So you can't have Hamas, going to the elections and forcing their way back into office. Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. Okay. Gaza will be governed by a temporary transitional government. In other words, it's not business as usual.
Sorry, I'll just add with the Israel part, there's a buffer zone, a security buffer zone. So they're not going to occupy Gaza as a whole, but there will be a security buffer zone in Gaza.
That makes sense. A no man's land kind of thing.
Yeah.
Board of Peace will be chaired by President Trump and others, including former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. How about that? And then a possible path to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. In other words, we're not giving it to you, but we're open to the idea of if you prove yourself to be a good faith actor on this stuff, you may become your own Palestinian state in the future. They've never had that before. Wow, that's going to be dynamic and interesting to watch. And of course, the libs will say that Trump bad and he doesn't get a peace prize. He's not doing it for a peace prize, though. He's doing it to make it come together. All right, we're taking a break. We're coming right back. We're going to switch gears. You know what we're going to do? JP on sports. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
And then I started getting into cocaine. Cocaine's expensive. In order to do cocaine, you have to sell cocaine. And I always say, when I tell my story, the same thing that makes me good at what I do for a living now, which is sales, networking, and persuasion, it's the same skill set I was using then, the exact same thing. And so I went in a very short amount of time from selling, little bits of marijuana to next thing you know, I'm selling cocaine, and next thing you know, I'm selling lots of cocaine. And in a period of 5 years, I racked up 6 felonies, and all of it was drug or stealing things to buy drugs or getting in a high-speed chase with the cops or whatever. But I, went from selling little bits of marijuana to the point where I was pushing large amounts of cocaine and methamphetamines for cartels in Colorado Springs.
That's before it was all legal out in Colorado.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now they let you take over apartment complexes.
Yeah, exactly.
Just,
now you can just bring your gang and have at it.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So, and going through getting ready to sit down with you today, and I've heard your story before, but I've never heard all of your story before.
Sure.
But you didn't just go to prison. You were on the run for a while, and
Sure.
then they caught you swinging on a rope out the window trying to get away from a drug bust.
Yeah.
And I am of the understanding that at some point, Dog the bounty hunter was offered the opportunity to track you down, and he declined.
Yes, and I don't think he declined. I don't think he, based off of, well, so I'll just tell the story. That's
You
what
have
we
to
do.
now
That's
that
what we
we've
do.
asked
We have to
about
tell
it.
stories. Yeah. So here I am. I've now racked up 6 felonies. That 6th felony was the doozy. Okay. And the 6th felony was, I was already out on bond. I was already on probation, and I'd been up for 3 or 4 days. Found out one of these guys who had informed the cops about some legal activity that I was involved with. Found out that he had just come into some money, and he owed me money, and he also narked on me, right? And so in that world, you don't do that. Those are the rules, okay? You don't do that. If you want to play in this society, you don't do that. Now, a lot of people did, but there was an enforcement mechanism called me, okay? And if you're going to do that to me, I'm going to find you, and I'm going to hurt you. That was the way it worked. And he wasn't the only one that I did that to, but he was the one that ended up telling the cops again. So I went to his house. I'd been up for 3 days, strung out on meth, pound on his door. He answers the door. I said, he's like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" I just immediately said, "Why'd you tell on me?" "And I didn't tell on you. I didn't tell on you." I walked into his house, pushed him. "Why'd you tell on me?" "I didn't tell on you." And I just started to beat him relentlessly. And the guy that I was with, so the way that it reads in the charges, and it's because they only wanted me to go down. They didn't care about the other guy that was with me. I was their target, okay, for the cops, law enforcement. I was the one running all these drug rings and theft rings and motorcycle theft rings and all this stuff. So they were after me, and I wasn't going to tell on the guy that was with me. But this is what actually happened versus what if you read the articles online and the charges and stuff. I was tasing him and beating him and tasing him with a taser and beating him, trying to get him to admit that he told on me. Well, the guy that was with me had a blackjack, which is it's not makeshift, like you can buy them. Yeah. It's got like a mechanical spring inside of it with a heavy piece of lead with leather wrapped around it. Yeah. And he hit him square in the forehead with it. Boom, his head explodes. Blood goes everywhere. Was not the intention of that visit, okay? My intention, I actually was friends with the guy and liked the guy, but he had broken the rules. And so I was in there to make sure that he understood that you don't do this. The guy I was with cracked his head open, blood went everywhere, and I'm like, well, at this point we're done, okay, like this is over. And after he got hit in the head with that, he admitted that he told on me. That happened, but that was not the intention of this meeting, was to go that serious and that far, but it did. And once it did, I just started grabbing computers and anything that was of value. I told his brother, I said, "Look, if you guys don't pay us, pay me the money that you owe me, I'm going to be back, and that's going to be you." And I walked out. And so they hit me with attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and extortion. That night I got arrested again.
That's go-away charges right there.
Those are go-away charges, yeah, for a long time. And it was my 6th felony, right? So my 6th time I've been arrested and charged in separate cases. And so I got arrested that night. I went to court, basically, and they dropped the attempted murder down to first degree because it didn't fit. And so my arraignment, I don't know what they call it. You're a lawyer. I'm not. Although after being in prison for a little while, you actually kind of turn into one. But they dropped it to first degree assault. And so I was charged with first degree assault, aggravated robbery, and extortion, and a slew of other things. But those were the heaters. And so I'm in there for 2 weeks, and I get bonded out again. And so now I'm out on several $100,000. No, I think it was like $135,000 worth of bonds, if I remember correctly.
Who posted bond?
There's so many rabbit trails I could go all the way down. I just don't know how interesting they are. There's this girl, I think her name was Lisa, that she was just infatuated with me and thought the world of me. And she went and used a credit card to buy a bunch of Xbox 360s that were out at the time, and then sold them and got the money to bond me out.
No kidding.
No one's ever got that story, Phil. You're the first that got that story.
Scoop.
That's that question. There you go. But yeah, I ended up bonding out, and knew immediately that if I go to court, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. So I'm not going to court, which now makes me a fugitive because I missed my court date, right? I'm on the run. And the plan was, I had a friend, Spider. He and I were supposed to, and Spider's a very bad dude, like very, very bad, Hispanic guy who's part of the Sereno gang. And we were supposed to go down to California with his people and then go into Mexico. That's what they do on the movies. We felt like it was a good idea. Only problem is we never got around to doing it. And so I ended up on a number of occasions, the cops ended up finding where I was, but they didn't have a warrant and they weren't sure. And so there's a couple different ways that I was able to get away when I was on the run. Yeah. And that infuriated them. Okay.
This is how long? Like several weeks?
Yeah, it was about 2 or 3 weeks. Yep. And so you had, at the time, there was Officer Mork and Officer Gold Branson, which were with Colorado Springs Police Department. But then you had Sergeant O'Driscoll, who was the head of the Fugitive Task Force and Crime Prevention Unit.
You still remember their names?
Yes, I do. And there's a
year
story in
is
that
this?
too. This would have been 2007.
Oh.
Yeah, and so Sergeant O'Driscoll and his team, not only was he on the Fugitive Task Force, he was part of the Crime Prevention Unit. So even before I was a fugitive, both Morgan Goldbranson and Sergeant O'Driscoll and his team, they were dedicated to bringing me in and taking me down. Okay, because of the threat that I posed in running these crime rings or whatever, and but the Crime Prevention Unit and Fugitive Task Force, it was ran by Sergeant O'Driscoll. They ended up they have like unlimited budget, work with the feds, all this other stuff, and so they were on me. And so I got away a couple times, and finally June 19th, 2007, I am in what we deemed my safe house, and Spider had given me a nylon rappelling rope to tie to the bottom of this 70s retro recliner, and he's like, if you got to,
the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a Friday. And listen, we got to do this, man. We got to punch out of politics and policy and all that for a minute and dive on into something that's a little more enjoyable, but still has a touch of culture attached to it. We like to call this segment JP on Sports, because my man JP is a sports guru who also, by the way, has the best sound effect in all of Rightside Radio, courtesy of some sorority girls at Auburn. Play it, man.
JP on Sports!
He smiles every time.
I mean, I got to.
You got to. All right, so we do this thing in 2 waves. The first segment is called the 3 and Out, top 3 stories as he sees it in sports. And the second one is called the 2-minute warning, multiple stories at 2 minutes each. I've got a timer and a buzzer. 3 and Out, go, man.
So what would your reaction be if 3 years ago I told you the game of the week this week in college football is Vanderbilt at Alabama?
Vanderbilt at Alabama.
Game of the week. Game day is going there, and it is the most anticipated game this weekend.
You know why?
I know why.
You know why?
Yeah.
I'll say it, because last year it was in the same sequence, Alabama, Georgia, followed by Alabama, Vandy.
Yep.
Alabama beat Georgia last year and then lost to Vandy.
Yep.
And everybody wonders, are we in repeat? Are we in like Groundhog Day?
And Vanderbilt is having a heck of a season of their own this year. They're currently 5-0 and ranked 16th in the nation.
That's true.
So, and last year it was kind of like a repeat of Alabama in 1969, beat Ole Miss in at Legion Field against Arch Manning in a crazy game, won at last second, and then the next week went to Nashville and Bear Bryant's team lost to Vanderbilt. So hopefully there's not a three-peat of that situation happening this time around. But it's all eyes are on this game in Tuscaloosa, not only because of what happened last year, not only because Vanderbilt having a heck of a season this year. It's the same quarterback that ran all over Alabama last year, had an amazing game against Bama last year, Diego Pavia, who is back, who is talking before the season about he expects Vanderbilt to win a national championship this year, but also apparently Johnny Manziel has taken Pavia under his wing.
Johnny Manziel
will actually,
Mr. Football.
He will actually be at the game this weekend to watch Pavia play. Apparently, some people are saying he may be on like Vanderbilt's sidelines. So there's a lot of different fun aspects to this game.
Wow.
As an Alabama fan, is it annoying that Vanderbilt beat Alabama last year? Yes, but it is fun to have a new rivalry in terms of Alabama and Vanderbilt, where Vanderbilt used to be a game that everybody in the SEC was like, okay, this is essentially a bye week, and we have Vanderbilt. But now Vanderbilt is making teams worried. So I do think this is going to be a really close game. I think it's no matter who wins, I think it's going to come down to the wire. I do think the home field advantage for Alabama may give them an edge.
Sure.
But I do think this is going to be I think it's even going to be closer than the Georgia-Bama game was. So
you got Johnny Football on the sidelines.
Yep.
And you've also got all their ACT scores are higher than Alabama.
That's true. There's been a lot of controversy too, because Theo Vaughn is going to be the guest picker this weekend in Tuscaloosa.
Wow.
Theo Vaughn is a Vanderbilt guy.
Is he really?
I
didn't know that.
He lives in Nashville. Him and Diego Pavia are good friends, So a lot of Bama fans are upset that they're coming to Tuscaloosa and their guest picker's a Vandy guy. But Saban is on the panel too, so essentially we got a Bama guy. But
that's true.
But there's a lot of buys this week. Auburn's got a buy. Tennessee's got a buy. So only the two ranked game this week are Alabama, Vanderbilt, and Miami, Florida. Miami, Florida State, which could be close. But Florida State's coming off of a brutal loss to an unranked Virginia. So I think a lot of people are expecting Miami to win this one. But game of the week is Bama, Vanderbilt.
And the rankings are Bama and Vandy are what each?
Bama's 10, Vanderbilt 16.
Wow. Okay.
So.
Wow. This is going to be a game. What time is it going to kick off?
2:30.
2:30 kickoff.
Prime
time.
Slot.
All
yep.
right. That's one. What's two?
MLB playoffs are now underway. We got the wild card weekend is now over. And now we're on to the division series where we got the Cubs and the Brewers. We got the Yankees and the Blue Jays, Dodgers and the Phillies, and then the Tigers and the Mariners. So a lot of good teams are still passing. We had a Yankees Red Sox rivalry to start off the wild card series there, where the Yankees came out on top, won the series 2-1. And I think the best series, though, in terms of team wise this week is Dodgers Phillies, where I just want both teams to lose. If that was possible, I just want both teams to lose that game. But the Cubs Brewers is a pretty good one as well. But I think the Brewers got the better team. Yankees should beat the Blue Jays, I think, and the Tigers have now bounced back from being the laughingstock of MLB the last couple of years. They're now a legit team. So I think the Tigers are going to win the Mariners game or the Mariners series there. But I think, like I said, the series that is the best one, I think, is Dodgers Phillies. Unfortunately, we got to watch. I don't want to root for either team. I'm just not going to watch the series. So
you got to find some joy in baseball.
Yeah, but also big news, kind of expected. Braves manager Brian Snitker did retire this week. He is going to. So this past season was his 49th season in the Braves organization.
Wow.
He worked his way up from minor leagues all the way up to being a World Series champion manager for the Braves. But for his 50th year, he's going to transition into a, quote, advisory role. But he will no longer be the manager. I think it's probably about time. So now the Braves are in coach looking mode, coach search. So it's going to be fun. The Braves haven't had to have that since Brian Snitker took over. What was it, in the mid 2000s or 2010s? So it's a new era for the Braves. But I think it's, like I said, it's probably about time. But it's going to be interesting who they find to fill Snitker's shoes there. It's going to be big shoes to fill.
All right, that's two. What's three?
WNBA drama keeps getting better.
WNBA.
I love it. Okay,
the
because
gift that keeps on giving.
It's not only Caitlin Clark now that is going to war with the WNBA. Nafisa Collier, who is a star player for the Minnesota Lynx, took to the post-game press conference to write say a written statement about her disapproval with the WNBA and how they're handling things officiating wise, but also how the WNBA league is treating its star players. So she called out the fact that she apparently had a meeting with Kathy Engelbert, who is the WNBA the commissioner, and apparently when she brought up her concerns, Nafisa Collier, to the officiating and how Caitlin Clark is constantly, getting beaten up on the court, really, and there's so many other star players that are getting injured, and apparently Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, said that Caitlin Clark should be just happy the WNBA gives her the platform.
Oh yeah,
to make $16 million off the court.
Oh yeah,
and it's like
that excuses it.
Are you serious? So the WNBA's view, obviously, is what the WNBA does for its star players instead of what the star players do for the WNBA.
Wow.
Need I remind you, the WNBA in its entire history has never made a profit. Okay. So this is a league that could use some star players like Caitlin Clark, like Angel Reese, like Paige Beckers, like Nafisa Collier. And whenever they come and they say, look, the officiating is terrible across the board. You got to protect your star players. And the response is, well, you guys should just be glad that the WNBA gives y'all a platform that you can make so much money. That is not the right response.
No.
And I'm actually glad to see that there's other players, a bunch of coaches and players are backing Nafisa Collier, including Caitlin Clark. So hopefully we can have sort of a player-led coup, so to speak, to get somebody better as WNBA commissioner that's actually going to treat its star players well and realize the gems that they have in Caitlin Clark and the other star players and actually use it to like a tide that can rise all boats.
Can I just say too, lawyer Phil talking for a second.
Yeah.
That whole thing about, we give her a platform to go earn that money. Guess what? If you don't if you do something that negligently or recklessly ruins her chances to make
Exactly.
that $16 million,
That's on you.
then you're liable.
Yep.
So, and she would have a lawsuit if they weren't doing anything to protect her and allowing these beatdowns to take place.
Yep.
And she lost her income because of it. That's damages.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I think the WNBA it'd be a much better way to go to try to protect the people and the players that are going to make you popular, because without them, the WNBA historically has struggled. So.
And Caitlin Clark, I want to be your attorney. And no representation made in the quality legal service performed. It's bad. That's
pretty much it.
That's it. That's it. The whole first segment. Okay, that's
time.
All right. Let's take a break right now. That's round one.
Wow,
that's round one of JP on Sports. We come back for round number 2. We call it the 2-minute warning. He's got time, but it's only 2 minutes, and I've got a timer and a buzzer. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
You go, because the front door is, there's a hallway in these apartments, and then you go from the hallway into the apartment, and the only way out would be down the window, out the window and down on the ground, and it's 3rd story. And I'm like, I'm never going to use that. That's crazy, but I did. Every 18 inches, I tied a double knot, so I could climb like that. And, I woke up June 19th, 2007, not thinking anything, just another day of being on the run. And I was in my living room.
One of your interviews, you said you woke up at 3 in the afternoon.
Yeah, it was that afternoon. And it was that afternoon. I was, again, smoking weed, doing drugs, and, your circadian rhythm gets a little off in that situation. And so woke up that afternoon. It's the weird thing that you remember. I was cooking bratwurst and watching the Chappelle Show. And I looked out the window, and the way that it's set up, there's an apartment building here. And every year I go to Colorado Springs and I take my family. And this year I took my 15-year-old son, and he's heard me tell this story a million times. And I'm like, here's the building. He's like, this just like the building you said. I said, yeah, no, it's because it's where it happened. Okay, like I'm telling you. And we go and we look, and there's an apartment building right here. This is the apartment building I'm in. And I saw the front end of a cop car sticking out. And I knew, okay, they're here. They're here. And so I kind of frantically, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Well, then all of a sudden I hear boom, boom, boom. Colorado Springs police open up. They kick in the door. And I look, it wasn't my door. So I said, they don't know which apartment I'm in. They're kicking in every single door in the apartment on the 3rd floor. All they knew is I was on the 3rd floor. And so you've been in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're clearing rooms as though this was Afghanistan trying to find me, okay, in an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay. I'm like, okay, well, I look at the rope and this is my only option. And so I kick the screen out, throw my backpack out with all my stuff. And the only piece of furniture in the whole place was the TV and the retro recliner. Okay. That was it. And so I wrap the rope around my hand and I jump, boom. And it sticks exactly how it's supposed to. It's, wedged in the window, and I'm hanging there. Well, what I didn't know, in that back parking lot, there was a surveillance van.
Oh, yeah.
That blends in with the rest of you wouldn't have known it was a cop car or whatever. It was a surveillance van. And they called it in. Someone's trying to jump out the window. I think we got our guy, and then 50 or 60 cops. They weren't going to miss me again. Come swarming from the outside. Like you couldn't see them because they were right here.
So the jig was up at that point.
The jig was up. Yeah, the gun's drawn. Get on the ground, as though I had another option. Gravity necessitated that down was the direction I was going to go, and so I unwrapped my hand, fell, and hit the ground. Thankfully, didn't break anything. They put their knee in my back, cuffed me, put me in the back of the cop car, and that was it. June 19th, 2007.
So I'm fascinated by 2 things in the story.
Sure.
One is you still remember the cops' names.
There's a story for why, but go ahead.
Well, and then I may get back to that story.
Yeah.
But the other is you take your kids and you show them exactly where this happened.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a lot into, you're obviously a different person today.
Sure.
I know the guy who did those things, but I don't know the guy who did those things. Sure. Because you're a different person. But that being said, you're pretty transparent with, and you have 7 kids, by the way.
Yeah.
You're a prolific breeder,
yes.
but nonetheless, you've got a beautiful family, 7 kids, but you're telling them what's happened in your life.
Mm-hmm.
What's can I ask you real quick? What's their response when they hear about Dad before they knew Dad?
This is a great platform to share the gospel with your kids, right? But the older ones, it's a warning. Proverbs talks about the fool. Dad was a fool, right? I was the epitome of the fool, and in Proverbs and really throughout the scriptures it talks about a fool. And I didn't seek wise counsel. I didn't receive instruction. I didn't receive discipline. I didn't any of those things. I rejected all of it, and this is where I ended up. And so I don't think it's set. So I've got a 15-year-old, I've got a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old. Okay. The 15-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 9-year-old are the ones that really wrap their minds around what I'm talking about when I talk about being in prison and, cops chasing me and that kind of stuff. The rest of the ones are younger, and they're just like, wow, Dad, you used to be bad, but now you're good. Like they don't have any, but it will eventually form like their understanding. And it's something that I want them to always know. And the thing I always point them to is like, one, don't be the fool, receive instruction, receive wise counsel, obey God and obey your parents. But also life isn't perfect. And if you stray, you can never stray so far that God can't get you. Right. And if God saved me, he can save anybody. And that's not cliche. It's literally, let me tell you about something. But again, specifically my 15-year-old, I drive him all around Colorado Springs. There's not a corner I didn't commit a felony in that city. Okay. And I drive him and I'm like, I did this.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're going to round 2 of JP on Sports. I'm getting my stopwatch ready because this is the one that we call the 2-minute warning. He's got 2 minutes per story. I've got a timer and a buzzer. First one, 2 minutes, go.
Well, we've talked about it several times throughout the week, but I got to talk about it again. Paul Feinbaum for Senate. And I'm putting up a funny picture here.
Oh, wow.
Paul for U.S. Senate.
Paul.
First of all, I think the Jeff Poor's angle on it of potentially, somebody in D.C. not liking the field and seeing Feinbaum's name ID to maybe spoil the race. I think that seems like the most logical thing here. But I thought it was interesting because Steve Marshall, who's actually going to be on the show later today, he was on Jeff Poor's show on Wednesday and pretty much called out Feinbaum, which kind of adds on to it of like, if he wasn't worried about Feinbaum, then why would he be saying something like this? But anyways, he said, he brought up a comment from Feinbaum in 2019, I believe this was, where he called President Trump a child, or he's acting like a child. The context here is something with his response to the protests in the NFL with people kneeling, or maybe in the NBA. But Feinbaum claimed that Trump's response to players kneeling was him acting like a child. And Marshall pretty much said, well, he claimed to be a conservative, claimed to be a pro-Trump guy, and that ESPN wasn't letting him interview Trump. And now he was, this rock solid conservative. You may have to answer to those previous comments there. So looks like things may be heating up a little bit. Feinbaum hasn't even entered the race officially yet, by the way. But, looks like Steve Marshall, I don't think he'd be calling him out if he wasn't thinking eventually Feinbaum's going to get into the race personally. So,
well, he may also be just trying to keep him at bay.
Keep him at bay, too, as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Look, he's going to have 100% name ID.
Sure he is.
But it's a little different than Tuberville, I would think, because Feinbaum appears to just kind of be coming out of nowhere. So we'll see if the name ID helps him, but he's going to have to answer to some other stuff as well.
And that's perfect timing. There you are. The buzzer, I reset the clock, and 2 minutes, go.
So the message boards have been going crazy. And the message boards are, a place where college football fans go to air out their grievances with their teams and such.
Festivus, the airing of the grievances.
Yes. But the Auburn message boards this week have gone crazy about Hugh Freeze potentially being on the outs, being fired. Now, these are all baseless rumors, obviously, as of now. But I don't know. Starting 2-2 the year, and Texas A&M is a good team, but I think a lot of Auburn fans would like to see a much better offensive outing. And Jackson Arnold has really struggled to even have time to throw. He's leading the nation in sacks currently. So is Hugh Freeze starting to get on the hot seat already? If Hugh Freeze drops another game, do you think he'll be on the outs? I will say this, though. Nick Saban has come out in support of Hugh Freeze, said that if Auburn gives Hugh Freeze the backing and the support that he needs, this team's too talented to struggle this long, and Auburn's eventually going to turn things around. So you could see that as Saban backing Hugh Freeze, who he's friends with, or is this Saban playing 4D chess? Does he actually want Hugh Freeze to stay at Auburn? I don't think so. I think that was
4D chess.
I think that was genuine. I think Saban was being genuine there, but I don't know. I think Hugh Freeze out of the way is going to finish out the season, but I don't know. It's interesting to see Auburn fans already 4 games in already wanting Hugh Freeze gone.
4 games in a couple of seasons.
That's true. 4 games in a couple of seasons where they expected more. But like I said, this team is extremely talented. Jackson Arnold is a great quarterback.
Yeah, he is.
And Cam Coleman, one of the best receivers in the SEC.
Also doing good on the runs.
It's too good of a team to struggle for too long. I think Saban's correct. But I think it's something to keep an eye on. Hugh Freeze and his job security there.
How do you keep doing it right on the timer? I mean, that's like you're on the money right now. Okay, so we got time. Yeah, we got time.
Yeah,
reset the clock. Go.
We got a big UFC card this weekend. We got a rematch of Alex Pereira going up against Magomed Ankalaev. That's another funny name, but here's a better one.
How do you do that?
You got Merab Walashvili going up against Corey Sandhagen for the Bantamweight Championship in the co-main event. Yuri Prohaska is going up also against Khalil Roundtree. This is a great card.
Is there anybody named Bob in there?
Okay. Listen, these are the best guys globally, so it's always fun to get different names in there. Corey Sandhagen, which is obviously an American name, going up against Merab Walashvili, who is from the mountains of Georgia, not Georgia, United States. This is a great card. There's been a little bit of a lull recently, and it's been a while since the last really solid pay-per-view, but this is a good one. Pereira, who was on a heck of a run as the light heavyweight champion, suffered a loss to Ankalaev unexpectedly, so now he's trying to get his belt back in the rematch there. And Merab Walashvili, who is on a heck of a run himself, Corey Sandhagen is probably the clear number 1 contender there, so this is going to be a great matchup. And then finally, Yuri Prohaska, Khalil Roundtree. It's going to be the fight of the night, in my opinion. Those are 2 guys that are brawlers. They're going to walk each other down. It's not going to be a boring fight. They're going to try to knock each other out the whole fight. It's not going to go to the mat either. They're going to be kickboxing. So I think this is a great card to watch. A lot of great fights. But if you want my bet on who's going to win, I think Pereira's going to win. Pereira's one of my favorite fighters, though. So I got to go with my guy. Fight of the night, I think, is going to be Prohaska Roundtree.
All right. How much time we got left? 'Cause I got to do Inspire Advisors too.
We got about 1:20 left.
Well, then let me do Inspire Advisors. That was a great one. Good clock management on your part.
Well, thank you.
I like how we use the sports terms in there too. Good clock management. Hey, listen, by the way, JP on Sports brought to you every single week by Inspire Advisors. Inspire Advisors. Paul Breyer and his team at Inspire Advisors are amazing at what they do. Listen, they can help you with the best ROI, the return on your investment for your investments. But you might also want to know what you're investing in, and they can help you with what's called BRI, Biblically Responsible Investing, where you can be proud of the companies you're investing in as being conservative and Christian and patriotic, as opposed to woke and filled with all kinds of nonsense. So yes, BRI for your ROI. That's with Paul Breyer and his team at Inspire Advisors. If you want to know more, set up an appointment with them. Just get to know what they have. Listen, all you got to do is go to their website, www.moneypatternwealth.com. That's www.moneypatternwealth.com. That's Inspire Advisors, Paul Breyer and his team, Biblically Responsible Investing. They can help you, and they are the sponsors weekly of JP on Sports. Hey, I got it all in. How'd my clock management look?
You got 10 seconds to spare.
Whoop, whoop. That's not bad.
That's not.
All right, coming up next, we're going to have a good time with some Butters and Lee. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. You guys hang around because we got a whole lot more where that came from.
I did this here, I did this here, I did this here. Like, this is who I was. You need to know and understand that, right? And so
Proverbs 19, raise up a child the way they should go.
Yep.
When they get old, they won't depart from it.
Yep.
All right, brother. So you, the jig was up. They got you. The officers whose names you still recall were a part of the task force that brought you in, and you're staring at 6 felonies prior before you even got to this point, and now you've got this stack of felonies, and you're looking at 384 years potentially.
Sure.
So you're looking at life in prison at that point.
Correct. Yeah.
But you negotiated.
Yeah.
Did you negotiate for yourself, or did your lawyer do a good job?
It's a mix, but there's a bunch between that. But yeah, it gets into mediation. But there was 9 months between then, and in those 9 months, they take me to county jail. I'm facing 384 years in prison. At least that's how my public defender described it, because how it works, and the numbers are shaky in my head, but I have to do the math. But either way, each charge that I was charged with gets doubled because I was on probation and on bond, so they can double it, so they enhance it.
Yeah.
And then they times it. They can times it by 4 because it's the habitual criminal.
Yeah.
Right. And so I can break it all down with math or whatever, but the habitual criminal. So if you have 3 felonies, they call that. I'm not going to say what they call it. It's the B word, the little B word. And if it's 4 or more, they quadruple your sentence, and they call that the big B word. Okay, habitual. Anyway, so I was at 6, so I'm times 4, and then so they stack, and then they times it by 4, and then that's where that comes from.
This is state, not federal, right?
State, Colorado State. Yep, Colorado State prison.
It didn't wind up being 384 years, but you still got a pretty stiff sentence.
Got a pretty stiff sentence, and the transformation really began in county jail. So I was in county jail for 9 months, basically holding out, and that's part of your negotiations in county jail. Is like, well, I'll just sit here until you bring me a deal that I want, right? And they'll only do that for so long. But it is, some people just want to get in there and they plea and they go to prison, But I was gonna, bide my time or whatever. Well, I'm now in county jail thinking I'm gonna go do the rest of my life in prison. That's how I'm seeing this. And so I'm in there thinking I have to create this reputation of being a bad dude, so when I get to prison, people won't mess with me. And so I do, and I'm hanging out with all the wrong people in there. I catch one assault case. They put me in the hole, then send me to another unit. I'm there for a little bit. They bring in another guy that had told on one of my friends. And I had to go beat him up really, really bad. Caught another assault case. So I caught 2 assault cases in county jail. So on top of all my other stuff, I caught 2 more assault cases. They were misdemeanor assaults, but they're still assault cases. And they put me in administrative segregation after that. So they're like, okay, you don't play nice with others.
That's solitary, basically.
Solitary,
right?
Correct. Exactly what it is. Yep. Solitary confinement. You're in a cell by yourself for 23 hours a day. You get an hour out to make a phone call and take a shower, maybe do some push-ups or whatever, and you go back to your cell. That's what you get. And I was in there for about 4 months, okay? And so it was 9 months total, 5 months out, 4 months in ADSEG or solitary. And in that stay in solitary, God began to open my eyes. I don't believe he saved me yet, but he opened my eyes to the fact it was my fault that I was in there. And this is huge. I was just reading a Rick Burgess's new book last night because I'm going to interview him later today. But it like that was one of the chapters when it talks about just rugged accountability. Like you have to take accountability for your actions if you're ever going to repent. And this was the beginning of me realizing, because up to that point, I blame my mom for my circumstances. I blame my dad. I blame the judge. I blame the cops. Da 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 da.
No more victim.
Exactly. And but what was wild though, I really believed I was a victim. Like I wasn't just saying that to get out of trouble. I really believed it, which is weird. But God, in his mercy, opened my eyes like, no, dummy, this is your fault. Sure, does your mom and your dad play a role? And oh, yeah. But your choices got you here. They didn't beat that guy up. They didn't jump out the window. They didn't, sell drugs. They didn't do those things. You did those things. Yeah. And so when I realized that my bad choices created the bad circumstances, that was extremely liberating, because what it meant is that I was free to make good choices that would then create good circumstances. And it was like this epiphany that went off in my brain. And so as much as you can in a cell by yourself, I began to...
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the Southeast US of A. Y'all, I'm talking about radio. I'm talking about podcasting. I'm talking about live streaming. Wherever you catch this show, we can see it. We see the numbers and we appreciate it. And there's been a whole lot of activity here of late, and we owe that all to y'all. So thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. You're the reason why we do it. All right. Well, there's two other people in the background that we usually hear from on Thursdays who do an amazing amount of stuff to make all this successful. And so I'm going to bring them on now. We like to do a segment every week with them where we sling out questions, get the opinions, and they flip the script and ask me questions. And I'm just going off the cuff and seeing how I do. In the meantime, let me just check on the roll here. So from the Huntsville region right now, the diva of dilatory discourse, would that be Lee from Huntsville? Are you there?
I'm here.
You are indeed, and we're glad. All right, and then closer to here, but also just silky smooth and buttery because his call sign is Butters. Butterman, are you there?
I am indeed here. Happy Friday,
Happy
Alabama.
Friday to you. Thank you all for being amenable to a change in schedule. So I pronounce a quorum. Hit me some whoop whoops. All right. By the way, Butterman, I saw your significant other in the airport. We actually crossed paths the other day or yesterday.
She said,
Yeah. That was very cool. I looked up unexpected, like, hey, what are you doing? All right. So here's my first question for you guys. You see, I've been in New York overnight. So now it's use guys. Okay. Let's do this close to home stuff first. So came out today, the FBI has now cut ties with the Southern Poverty Law Center based out of Montgomery. Southern Poverty Law Center, the SPLC, originally started off as an organization designed to fight against racism and that kind of thing. And they've really morphed into a bad trope of their former selves. But the FBI has been using them in recent years to help them develop their hate lists and who they're going to investigate. Well, the FBI says no more. We're cutting ties. What are your thoughts? Butters, you first.
How do we get them on their hate list? Okay. It's about time.
Yeah.
How long has Trump been in office? Why was that not day 2? I don't understand why it's taking this long, but okay, I'll take it. Yeah, I mean it's embarrassing for us as the state of Alabama that this is here. Yeah, I mean it's, and just the whole concept of we're gonna lean on some other organization to determine a hate group, and like what like what are you doing?
Yeah, like the FBI can't do that on their own.
Yeah, and yeah, that's just such a recipe for ridiculousness. So I don't know if you know this, even closer to home. I do believe they're still poking and prodding at the Etowah County Jail and some of the issues that have happened in the
SPLC is.
Yep. So
I don't doubt it. SPLC. I think they also put the Alabama Policy Institute on the hate list at one point.
Yeah, I was just looking at their website. They've got TPUSA on there.
Yeah,
I think it's just it's part of the, like, we're done. I don't care. I really don't care what you have to say.
No more of yous. We don't want yous. That's exactly right. All right, Lee, weigh in here. Your thoughts. SPLC, FBI. They're not going to the prom together. What do you think about it?
Again, I agree with Butters. It's about time. I mean, why wasn't this done during the first administration, Trump administration? I don't get that. They have been, they were used heavily in Obama administration and Biden administration. And what they want is they want to tell them, hey, put this person on this group on your hate list. And then the FBI comes in and says, okay, it's on this hate list, so now we're going to investigate it. You know, it's just setting up their own investigation. So essentially trying to use them as cover. My question is, why do they, because, racism is waning. So, since they can't manufacture more, they have to jump in and say, well, now it's based on all the LGBTQ and trans stuff. And it's, they're taking groups who just say, hey, can we keep that in your own bedroom? Oh, they're a hate group now.
Yeah.
And it's insulting. They have parents' rights groups on there, like Moms for Liberty, which is insane.
Yes.
They have TPUSA. They had Charlie Kirk on. I mean, they had TPUSA or mentioned something about Charlie Kirk, a few days before he was shot? I mean, they got to take some responsibility at some point on who they call hate and what it's all a big camouflage. And I also want to know, Morris Dees, one of the founders,
yeah,
why is he so rich? Why does he have so much money in offshore accounts? Where's that money come from?
Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up because they are known for having massive amounts of money that they squirrel away in offshore accounts as a nonprofit. So there's that.
And so I guess, does this mean we're in the business of thought crimes? Is that what the hate is that what we're doing in 2025? And
well, I will say
what exactly is
it was a heavy part of the DOJ's background support network for the Biden era. So I would say the answer to that is probably yes.
Hey, I like what Trump's doing. Let's look. You're a terrorist group or you're not. And let's move on from there.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, I think so. I don't believe that the SPLC was relied upon during the Trump administration first time. I think this is a Democrat thing. This is a Democrat thing. And the Biden administration is the one that glommed onto it and really made it a thing. But I think what brought it to the forefront is the recognition of what happened with Charlie Kirk and TPUSA being branded as a hate group. And then next thing you know, there was a murder, Charlie Kirk. You may also remember what happened a few years back when they had the Family Research Council, like, Tony Perkins and those guys. Family Research Council was put on the hate group. They're a Christian group that advocates for against same-sex marriage and that kind of thing. And they literally had someone go in their office and shoot up their offices in New York. And I can't recall if somebody died or not, but it was awful. It was because they were labeled a hate group and it got people riled up. So
I think that guy actually stated that was one of the reasons why that shot the place up.
Yes, it was.
If TPUSA is a hate group, then our country's screwed.
That's right.
I mean,
Alabama Policy
forget
Institute hate group. What in the world? Okay. All right. Listen, we got time. Yes, we do. Let's go into question number 2. So let me ask you this: government shutdown is underway. I don't know how it affects y'all. I mean, I know Butters, you're in the private sector, but you've been a public employee technically with the military in the past. Lee, I'm not sure what it's doing to you and your family, but it's a thing. I mean, I'm watching family members in the military right now wondering if this is going to get over with soon enough for the next paycheck to come in. But let me ask you this: on the politics side of it, which unfortunately it's all politics, who's winning the messaging battle right now about the government shutdown? Who are the Republicans winning the messaging battle, or are Democrats winning the messaging battle? Lee, you're first this time.
I will say that it affects a lot of people here in Huntsville, so it's definitely top of mind, from contractors, to military, to NASA, to a lot of people here. So I think the Republicans have the advantage this time because the messaging is pretty clear about providing this Medicaid or Medicare or whatever funding, and the states that are misusing it. And I have to point to your brilliant assessment last night on CNN. And you did come as receipts, like you said. They're using it to fund states that have, made it legal that they will fund, basically essentially using their ERs as primary care physicians for people who are here illegally.
Yeah.
And it's just not feasible. It's not, and I don't see why people in our state have to fund through our federal dollars states that have decided to do this. It's not fair to the people that live here. It's not fair to the people who depend on our services here for our services to be misused. And perhaps if people thought twice about coming here because they weren't getting free healthcare and free education for their children and free, money for housing and everything else, maybe they might not come.
Carrot and the stick, right? I mean, the carrot's been dangling pretty heavily the last few years, and free healthcare is a big part of it. Butters, what are your thoughts? Who's winning the messaging battle, Republicans or Democrats?
I think that the people we're all just losing on this. I've dealt with this twice when I was on active duty. Once, I think, like days before I left for deployment, so that was fun. I would agree in this instance, the Republicans overall have an advantage in that I think most people or more people are sick and tired and want to get stuff straightened out, and they're willing to deal with the pain that's going to come from this. But I mean, my entire career in the Navy was on continuing resolutions, and so I think everybody's losing out on what the heck is Congress doing, or the Senate. Like what have they been doing the last 28 years? I think it's been since we've had a budget of any kind. You know, why are we so broken? And, you know, in terms of the messaging and the PR, both sides are just going to play it up to their own people. And I don't know that it's going to matter.
You know, what's funny is I had a campaign commercial in my I think it was my 2014 race. But anyway, I had a campaign commercial and it was me on a you know, just in a casual, and actually what happened was it was recorded, the interview, and they said, we got to use some of that. So we did. And it's me saying in DC, they can't even pass a budget. And yet in Montgomery, at the very least, we have a balanced budget requirement, and we've been doing that every year. And since Republicans took, anyway, the bottom line is I was talking about it as a campaign issue 11 years ago. And it's just nuts that this is still going on like this. Regular order of business, we got to restore it.
I feel like I've seen a lot of the back and forth of who was president during the past, and not a whole lot of really great discussion of like, this really is not a presidential thing. I realize, you know, that they're supposed to mediate and try to make, you know, but this is the one job that we send all of you up there to do
for Congress. Yeah.
For Congress.
Yeah.
Well, they're trying to claw back.
They're getting off scot-free.
Things that were enacted during when the Big Beautiful Bill was passed. This is what this is.
Well, it is. It's also posturing for their base because they need a win. They need to show some fight because right now they got nothing. And then there's a lot of talk about, and I don't know to the extent that Schumer is holding his entire party hostage for his own race. There's a lot of talk, though, that Schumer has to do something because he's got the really strong possibility that AOC is going to primary him in the next Senate race, and he doesn't want to do that. I'm looking at it going, dude, you're in your mid-70s. Go to the House. For crying out loud. Go, you retire.
Him and a bunch of others.
Exactly. All right. That is round one of Butters and Lee. We're going to come back with round two where they just flip the script and ask me questions. I don't know what they are. I just take them as they come and hope I got an answer. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Ownership of my thoughts, feelings, behaviors, decisions, all that kind of stuff. So much so that my family really began to like, because I would have a phone call a week. That's all they would give me. Not that like I could call them every day on my hour out if I wanted, but my family would pick up the phone once a week. They'd cut me off. I'd burned every bridge.
Wow.
And in those weekly phone calls, my family started to notice a huge change in my attitude.
Who'd you call?
My grandma Barb.
Okay.
Yep. And I would call my grandma Barb, and usually it would be on Sunday night, and my mom would be over there, and my brother would be over there, and and so they'd pass the phone around or whatever, and I'd talk. But they specifically, my grandma Barb is like, something's changed in him, and everyone, and a lot of people in the family told grandma she was crazy. You just got a soft spot for Brian, whatever. But she's like, no, I feel like something's changed. And
is that your dad's mom or your mom's mom?
It's my mom's mom.
Okay.
Yep. Meanwhile, my dad's mom, the one that was teaching Sunday school for Miss K, Scott Beeson, when he interviewed me, said, who was praying for you? It was a good question. I said, well, Betty Dawson was. And lots of credit goes to her for that. But Grandma Barb, she began to really believe in me and believe that there was a change that had happened, so much so that she, so in this time period, that 4 months that I'm in there, I guess about 3 months into my ADSEG stay, my public defender came and said, okay, Brian, the district attorney, she was like really excited to give me this deal like it was a good one.
Your attorney was?
Yes, a public pretender. And she comes and says, Brian, this is great. If you sign this deal, you're only going to get 32 years with a crime of violence. And I'm like, amazing. When you're 23, 384 and 32, there's not a lot of difference, right? And so I was not real excited about that. So I called my grandma and I said, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. Because the way it works in Colorado, it's way different than it is in Alabama. On a 32-year sentence with a crime and violence sentence enhancer, which is another way that you have a crime of violence, so they stack your sentences, then they aggravate it, and then they multiply it. So it's basically they're just going to throw everything they can at you. If you go to trial, and she explains this to me, if you go to trial, this is what they can do to you. But I tell my grandma I'm going to prison for the rest of my life, and she reaches out to these attorneys. She's got a little bit of money. She hasn't got a lot of money. She's just reaching out to these attorneys. They're like 60 grand, 120 grand, 150 grand to represent, he's got 6 felonies.
I'm underbilling myself apparently as an attorney.
Yes. Well, if you get into criminal law and you got a guy with 6 felonies, you should probably charge more. But they're like, and she's like, well, I can't afford any of that. And I said, go talk to Jeff Barker. Jeff Barker's got a great reputation for being kind of an up and coming new lawyer who's just really, really good. And she goes and sits down with him. And he's like, look, best I can do is $10,000. And if he goes to trial, I need another 10. My grandma says, I don't have another 10. He's like, well, he ain't going to trial, so I'm not that worried about it. Right. So he's like, okay, $10,000. And so he ends up becoming my attorney. And we're a little bit long for him. So I'm going to go into some of this because this is really cool. I've never told this part of the story in any media hits. And so, now I'm up against the wall when I try to retain this attorney. The next day, I've got to take my plea or I've got to go to trial. So they've got witnesses showing up for my trial that day. So if I don't take the plea, I go to trial.
You're down to knuckle dragging.
Down to knuckle dragging. And you're an attorney. You kind of know how some of this stuff works. Yeah. The judge says, you don't get a new attorney, buddy. No, he's not your attorney. Your attorney is this lady, and you either sign the plea or you go to trial. I'm like, my grandma's like, my new supposed to be attorney's like, and the public defender comes over and she's like, hey, I don't know how this happened, but one of the witnesses in the case got stuck in traffic or whatever, and she's not going to be able to be here. She has to get back to work. And so they had to delay it, and they punted for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, I'm able to have him retain, and he gets me into a mediation hearing. And in the mediation hearing, this is really cool too, negotiation tactics. They were never able to, so what a mediation is, they have a retired judge, his name was Judge Toth. I'd be in one room with my attorney is how it's supposed to work, and it's supposed to be at the courthouse, and I'm in one room, the district attorney's in another room, I'm with my attorney, and Judge Toth goes back and forth, okay? And I think I should get 8 years. Well, we think you should get 32. Well, I think I should get 10. I think it's basically like horse trading, okay? Well, we couldn't get our calendars to line up to get it done at the courthouse, so she had to come to the county jail on Martin Luther King Day on her day off. Okay, and she's in there in her pajamas. The deputy district attorney, she's in there in her pajamas. She's absolutely pissed that she's there, and I can see this. I'm like, she didn't want to be here. I've got 384 years. I've got nowhere to go, and she obviously doesn't want to be here. So I just kept dragging and dragging and dragging.
We discovered years ago the best time to buy a car is right before the staff leaves for a holiday weekend.
Yeah, it's like go, go, go.
So you're in that mode right now. All right, she's in her pajamas.
She's in her pajamas.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're going right back to Butters and Lee. So this is the part of the segment where we flip the script and they ask me questions. I don't know what's coming. I just wait with bated breath. So I'm going to go with Lee first. What you got, Lee?
So third week of October, the APLS, the Alabama State Library Board,
right,
is going to vote on some new laws that basically for the libraries, basically stating that they can no longer purchase more of LGBTQ slash transgender type books, as well as they have to make sure everything is in that vein, moved out of the children and young adult section.
Yeah.
And this is caused a pretty good stir overall, and the library meetings are getting interesting again. Your thoughts on if it will pass, which I think it will.
Yeah.
And what do you think is going to be the backlash?
Okay. Well, so I think, first of all, the library board is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It is supervising libraries, which, go figure, I'm still amazed that we talk about libraries as being the centers of controversy, because that was like Little House on the Prairie when I was a kid. I mean, it was just this place where everything was cozy and wonderful, and you could smell the paper, in the books. And anyway, the end result is libraries are apparently very controversial now because activists make everything controversial. I think it will pass. I think that it will also probably stand. And I do think, though, that there will be some hate groups out there that will immediately file suit and claiming there's discrimination or censorship. But it's not like they're picking on any certain book. They're saying that we will not allow certain types of content in our state-funded libraries. And I think that there may wind up being certain pieces of of this that get dealt with from the court. But I think the courts in the 11th Circuit or in the state courts are going to uphold it. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a First Amendment thing. When you're not curtailing somebody's speech, you're just saying we're not going to spend state tax dollars on certain kinds of content. So yeah, that's my thought right now. It may go by the way of Netflix. Right now Netflix it's all about everybody's dropping their Netflix subscriptions because they're putting transgender kids shows on, and so I think that what we're looking at now is people are finally grabbing hold of their library board and saying, "Make it stop."
Yeah.
All right.
They're saying it's tough because they can only go by the recommendations of the publishers, and sometimes they can't tell. And I'm like, well, look harder.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, examine the pages before you put on the shelf.
I've got 2 letters for them. AI.
It's
Just
not hard.
feed it in.
Exactly.
You're done.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
That's a good point. All right, Butterman, what would be your question for Mawa? Oh boy, he's exhausted.
I don't know
already.
if you've been tracking digital IDs. So all this the stuff that the UK is trying to roll out with digital IDs.
Yes.
Already rolling out in some other nations. Sounds like Vietnam is getting pretty hard and heavy on all of that kind of stuff. I guess the question on I think anybody listening is probably going to go, this is a horrible idea. But is this going to turn into just another thing like, I don't know, Obamacare and healthcare that we sit here and go, no, and there's hand wringing from the Republicans. Never, that's a horrible idea. And then eventually it gets passed, and then we're just living with this digital ID system that tracks everything that we do.
Wow, that was a lot. So first of all, the UK is where free speech goes to die now. And
apparently,
and I think under the current administration and even a JD Vance administration, you would not see a push for this, because even if Congress passed it, I don't think that the president or our current vice president would sign it into law. But I will say this, you have to keep an eye on this, because they are in the absence of a constitutional free speech right, nations around the world have decided they want to grab the narrative because they're scared of social media and the ability to have 24/7 discourse. And they don't want real-time news, and they want to control the flow. And they no longer have to deal with the big 3 networks. Now they have to deal with everybody with a keyboard. So I think you're going to wind up seeing a push for this nationwide, or excuse me, worldwide. And I think we have to really stay on our guard here. This is a bad idea. This is a big government approach. This is a big brother approach. And you watch. They're going to put it in place in some countries, and then American companies have to figure out what to do if they want to do commerce in those countries. So it's going to be a nut roll.
Mark of the beast.
And you know what? I meant to say that a minute ago. Thank you for that. Yes. And then next thing you know, we're having to put chips under our skin, and
definitely reads that way.
Can't buy or sell without it.
Well, and I get there's the argument that they track your movements on your phone and all that kind of stuff. That's by our choice. We choose to do that.
We do. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, listen, that's it. The music's playing. Preacher got to quit preaching. Appreciate you both so much. Butters and Lee coming in every week, and this time they came on a Friday. Coming right back, we have Attorney General Steve Marshall calling in. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Snowing outside, and she just doesn't want to be there. And so I keep dragging and keep counteroffering, and she loses, and she says, that's it. 15 years with the crime of violence. That's my final offer. No way with the violence in your crime and the assault cases that you've caught in county jail, these 2 extra assault cases, will I ever drop this crime of violence. And the crime, and so on a 32-year sentence with a crime of violence, you're going to do 24. Okay. So that matters. It's a huge, like, you're going to do more of your time.
Yeah.
And then on a nonviolent, you're going to do maybe a third of your time or less. Okay. So I'm heavy focused on that crime of violence. Like, okay, we got her down to a decent year range, and I don't know where this came from. It had to have been a God thing. And I looked at my lawyer. I said, "You don't tell Judge Toth anything." I said, "You walk in there to that district attorney, go tell her that, you know, my client doesn't want to end up in he wants to change his life. He doesn't want to end up in a maximum security prison with swastikas all over his face. He wants to change his life. He's willing to give you a year if you drop the crime of violence." And the way their thing works is like, oh, I get 16 instead of 15, cha-ching. And all of a sudden, all that, you know, conviction about crime of violence just went out the window.
So she got a trophy, basically.
Correct. Yeah. And so I gave her the year, which is that's good for her. So she drops the crime of violence, and I get 16 years with no crime of violence is what I ended up getting sentenced to. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That
I
is
was
crazy. You are into sales.
Yeah. And I was the happiest person ever to be sentenced to 16 years. Like, yay, 16 years in prison. But again, everything's relative when you face it to 32 or 384. Yeah.
All right. You said in one interview I saw with you, I've forgotten, it's some folks that you had known, but they have their own podcast, Emily and somebody else. I've forgotten the guy's name, the husband and wife team.
Chris and Emily, yeah.
Yeah, Chris and Emily. But at one point you said in that solitary confinement where you began having that epiphany about accepting responsibility for your own actions and you're not a victim of that, you felt like God had thumped you. But you still weren't there yet.
Yeah.
But then you started meeting and hanging out with a guy who, in your words, what I saw was he began to drop seeds of the gospel in your life.
100%.
And was that in prison? Was that in county jail? Where was
Prison.
that? That was prison.
Yeah. So here I am. God thumps me on the head and shows me it's my fault.
Right.
Shortly after that, I get into this negotiation hearing.
Right.
My heart's softened to the idea of God and him working in my life.
Because he has been.
Because he has been. And then I get 16 instead of 32, you know, so now I'm looking at getting out in 5 years instead of 24 or never. So I knew God had moved. And so I'm like, okay. But I was always open to God. I always prayed to God. I always knew that God was real. I had some experiences in church growing up that were like bad experiences, but good experiences. I don't know how to really describe it. Like, these people had something that I wanted, but I also saw how judgmental and kind of hypocritical that they were. Yeah. And so I was just like, but I knew that God was real. And so I prayed. Like, when I was a kid, I prayed. Through my addiction, I prayed. When I was a fugitive, I prayed a bunch. And when I was in county jail, I prayed even more. Wondering about what my sentence. So I knew God was real, but I didn't understand how Jesus factored into it, and no one ever really taught me about Jesus. So I was agnostic. I knew that God was there, but I didn't understand how it worked. Right.
Yeah.
And so I get to the first prison I get to is called Huerfano County Correctional Center, which is in Walsenburg, Colorado. You go in there. You got in Colorado you wear greens, and so you got your greens on. And you've got a couple extra pairs of greens and a couple pairs of state-issued underwear, like a cup and a spoon, and you walk into your unit, and the thing slams behind you, and you're now in your unit. It's got 120 guys in there. And you're like, okay, what's about to happen? Because the new guy comes in, fish, fresh fish, and here comes this big, huge dude with a Semper Fi tattoo on his arm.
Oh, former Marine, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, well, always a Marine, they say. True. I've made the mistake of calling him a former Marine. I've been corrected 17 times. He walks up and reaches out and shakes my hand. He says, "My name's Charles. I'm a Christian, and this is a faith pod." And so all the movies that were going off in my head about the doors slamming and someone coming up to stab me having to fight to see if I was tough, like there's all the things that I thought could have, would have, should have. But this big, burly, huge dude who definitely could have beat me up is like, "My name's Charles. I'm a Christian. This is a faith pod." That wasn't on the, on the bingo card. That's correct. But not on the bingo card. Yep. And I'm like, okay, Charles, what is a faith pod? And he goes, "Man, we do discipleship in here. And, we do Bible studies. We do discipleship. And I take seminary classes on the weekends. And, we do praise and worship every single morning." and they did. And
he's saying words you don't even know.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have to get out of here immediately. That was my response to that.
Put you in the cult ward.
Get me out of here. You ever seen Happy Gilmore? When anyway, there's the scene with the lady in the old folks home where she falls and get me out of here. But that's how I felt. I was like, I got to get out of here. But it's prison, and it turns out you can't get out of there. Who knew? And so I was stuck, and it was a good thing. And Charles really just became my friend. He didn't browbeat me. He didn't, he wasn't over the top. He was my friend, and you get in there, you don't have coffee, you don't have soups, you don't have, sweats, you don't have any of that stuff. And so he gave me, all those things. Like, here, you need some of this, you need some of this. Hey, if you need anything, let me know. So he just became my friend, and his conversation would turn to a subject or a situation. He would kind of Socratically ask me questions.
He would weave Jesus into it.
And he would weave Christ into the questioning and say, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that? And I remember one of the funniest ones he did was, this is pre-saved Brian in prison, okay? And I'm talking about, girls and having sex with girls and all this other stuff. And Charles just looks at me, he's like, but wouldn't it be like so much more beautiful if like you just didn't have sex again until you got married? And I died laughing so hard and just pointing at Charles like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But you know what? Flash forward, that's exactly what I ended up doing. Yeah. And it was because of that question that happened before I got saved that Charles did. So he's or go ahead.
No, I got to say, so part of my weird resume is that I spent 7 years in full-time ministry with an organization called Young Life.
Yeah.
Which is headquartered in Colorado Springs, by the way. I spent time in Springs because of that.
Yeah.
Love that city. Probably back when you were actually messing up things. But we called it relational evangelism.
Yeah.
It was earning the right to share your faith is what we called it.
Yeah.
And it was not like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Friday afternoon. And we're going to get you all the way to go home time here on Friday. But in the meantime, continuing with the quality product that we are, we're bringing somebody on who's been a friend of the show, who has also been a very solid conservative and just plain right Attorney General for the state of Alabama. Steve Marshall is indeed the Attorney General for the state of Alabama. He, prior to that, had been a career prosecutor working out of Marshall County and is also now a candidate for the U.S. Senate for the seat being vacated by Tommy Tuberville. So without further ado, let me just ask him to come on board right now. Mr. Attorney General Steve Marshall, how you doing?
Hey, Bill, I'm doing great. Hey, I can say I knew you before you were internationally known.
Yeah, well, I don't know that I'm internationally known at this point, but I'm enjoying my life. How about that?
That's great. Hey, we continue to love your fight against the left on some of the national media. That's been a lot of fun to watch you engage.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a lot of fun to do, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out how it all happened, but it's a hoot. Well, speaking of the fight, let me ask you a question, Mr. Attorney General. Sure. You've seen law enforcement and the enforcement of the laws at both the local and the state level, and of course, you're looking at the U.S. Senate now. But let me ask you: we now are watching the Trump administration's fight against street crime moving into southern cities, with the National Guard being called out in Memphis, and even Senator Tuberville, if he's a governor, said he'd use it in Alabama if he had to. The National Guard. What are your thoughts on that very dynamic version of law enforcement from the federal side at the state level?
Yeah, I think this is the consequence of the defund the police movement that we saw the left advance several years ago. When you see cities, not only like Washington, D.C., but in Birmingham and Montgomery or other places that have had a mass exodus of law enforcement working the day-to-day shifts that they felt called to do. And I don't know that we should be shocked to see the consequence of that is the bad guys being able to do more bad things. And President Trump said our nation's capital ought to be a safe place for people to visit. We ought to be able to make sure that it's a beacon for places to see what our country is about. And look, National Guard's not going there arresting folks.
Right.
They are there as a presence to be able to keep the bad guys from doing bad things. And I think it's been interesting to see, the outrage has come from the activists, but when they interview the folks that live in those communities in D.C. that have been struggling, what do they say? We're glad they're here.
Yep.
We feel safer, and our communities feel like they're in a better place. And look, the hope is that they're simply there supplementing in a short way so that local officials can take care of their jobs. But when you have, for example, a mayor of Chicago want to somehow or another justify 50+ shootings in a weekend where 8 people were killed as somehow or another just a normal week. And that should be unacceptable.
No.
And the fact that President Trump is aggressively saying we want our communities to be safer. So this isn't a red or a blue issue. This is not liberal or conservative. People want to feel safe. And look, we dealt with that a little bit here in Montgomery. We've talked, I think, on your show about the task force that we put together with Leah, with our office, with the Sheriff's Department, really trying to work to reduce violent crime in Montgomery. And I'll never forget a call I got from a local resident here after we had initially deployed that task force. And she's like, I finally feel safe being out on my front porch at night. And I didn't feel like that way for a long time. And that's the kind of delivery of service that we want to people across the country. And I think that's what President Trump's trying to do.
No, listen, I completely agree. And I saw that, like, for instance, it's been both state and local leaders in places like Illinois that have been, resisting. In Oregon, it's even, the rhetoric is even heavier, and it's almost to the point of being lampoonish. But just this morning, I was watching on one of the networks as they interviewed just a resident on the street, not a protester, but a resident who said, I just want my neighborhood back. Because he was talking about all the Antifa protesters that show up there and cause mayhem. He said, I just want my neighborhood back. This is uncalled for. And I think there's a lot of that going around.
It is. And, I think there's actually some litigation out of the city of Portland right now that is sort of questioning what and how much the president can act and operate in these areas. And so I think that's probably a case to look after. But, the other thing that President Trump's trying to do is ensure the safety of federal buildings. That when you have ICE agents who are facing this relentless attack from the left, having concerns about the integrity of not only the building perimeter, but also the safety of those who work there, the fact that we want to allow for there to be a military presence there, it shouldn't be shocking to anybody.
No.
The ICE agents have now, frankly, been liberated to do the job they haven't been able to do during the 4 years of the Biden administration. And they're having to clean up the mess that was the southern border created by Joe Biden because he wasn't willing to do the job as president.
Well, so let me ask you about something closer to home. Just had a report come out about a couple hours ago that right here in Montgomery, Alabama, the Southern Poverty Law Center, that the FBI has divested of any further connections, contracts, or reliance upon anything from the SPLC. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's an amen, right? I mean, look, SPLC is no friend to the state of Alabama, and clearly not a friend to conservative causes. I was a little bit surprised to see, actually, Director Patel's order, because I didn't know there was really any nexus that was involved between the FBI and them. The only thing historically I ever saw was some discussion around sovereign citizens and what the SPLC was doing there, but beyond that, I had no idea that there was ever any connection. And so was very pleased to see that action by the secretary, and particularly in light of what you and I both have seen for years, where, because of woke policies, the efforts around ESG, you had companies relying upon SPLC classifications of individuals or groups that not only determine whether or not charitable donations could come to them, but also how they were viewed in the eyes of other people. It is refreshing to see this administration push back on that organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen, I want to talk about your campaign for a minute, but I got to tell you, Sean Diddy Combs has got sentenced. So just in the world of prosecution, Diddy's going to jail.
Well, it's about time.
There's two about times in a row right there.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's talk about your campaign for a minute, because I think that folks need to know who's out there running for these incredible offices. And I don't care if it's dog catcher, but you are running for one of the most important elected offices for any state, but in this case, state of Alabama. I understand you just got the endorsement of Alpha. And I'll say for you, and you can say it if you want to, but I know for a fact, having been in state politics, that there are certain organizations that conservatives desperately want to know support them. And one of the conservative organizations would have been Alpha. And I understand they just endorsed your race. Is that correct?
It has this week. Like, we were very humbled and very appreciative that the farmers across Alabama saw fit to be able to endorse me in this race. And one thing that I think that's unique about that organization is that not only are they advocates on behalf of the agriculture industry, which I think is almost a $54 billion impact on our economy. But also, I think that family farm is the fabric of who we are. And you feel so much of what you talk about on your show is about faith and freedom and those principles of liberty that are so important. I mean, that's the core fabric that we developed from our rural communities and our rural farms throughout Alabama. And so to have the men and women of that federation support you is very much humbling, and it's exciting because they're, as you well know, a strong grassroots organization across the state. And the fact that they've got my back is really sort of buoyed my sails again to knowing why I'm doing this. And that's to serve the people of Alabama well, to deliver results back that matter tangibly to families and small businesses across our state. Because I think what they've seen is that over the years, my time as AG, we've taken all those tough fights, but most importantly, we've delivered the results that have mattered, and we want to be able to do that in the United States Senate.
You're burning up the roads, I guess, 67 counties, and they all got to be touched. So how's that going?
It's going good. I was up near your neck of the woods up in Cherokee County just, I guess, on Monday night, and then was down in Phoenix City last night, and then we've been in other places in parts in between. Still trying to, by the way, do the job that people want me to do as AG too. So, 2 full-time jobs. But as you well know, one of the beauties of being on the campaign trail, I'll tell you, I was literally in Gadsden. I had an hour to kill before I went up to center, and was just there. And the Chick-fil-A, and a guy came and said, "Are you Steve Marshall?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he just wanted to sit down there with me and share the things that he was excited about that we were doing from the AG's front, and particularly fighting for the principles that matter to the people of Alabama. And that's that affirming part for me. It's great to be out to listen to Alabamians about what they want, and tells me what I need to be able to do in public service. And so it's been exciting. And look, it's an incredible opportunity to be the Attorney General of Alabama, because the people of our state give you the ability to fight for things that matter. And I also believe that's true when you serve them for the United States Senate.
Am I right? And I think you may have actually said this last time you were on the show. Are you the longest serving AG we've had?
I am the longest serving AG in modern history. There was one back in the early 1800s that were a little bit longer. But yeah, when I'll be done, we're almost, getting 8.5 plus years in the role. It'll be 10 years almost by the time I leave. So yeah, we will be. I feel like this means that I've lived long enough, right, to be able to do that. But it's a great privilege. It's funny also, people say, well, gosh, do you wish there weren't term limits? And my answer to that's always no. I mean, I'm glad there are term limits, because I think new ideas, new energy, and this is not an occupation. This is really a place in which I have to serve, but it's not an expectation. That should be my career. And so when I walk out the door here, I'll be fundamentally proud of what I've had an opportunity to do, but also firmly believing that it's time to pass the torch to the next person to be able to take over.
Well, that's that is interesting, and it's something to say you've been in the office for a decade. But listen, I do think you've done a great job while you're there, and I appreciate your service. Hey, and I got to ask you a totally off the wall, somewhat more personal question. Don't be scared. I'm not going to get you here, but I just became aware of an author named Robert Bailey, who writes legal books about the prosecutor's office. It's a novel, prosecutor's office out of Marshall County. Have you ever read his stuff?
I have not. I'm going to have to find this out.
Listen, I'm on the third one. I'm on the third. Oh, they're all fiction, but you're going to read it. And I mean, everything is spot on. He goes and eats at the Rock House. He's in the courthouse on the square. I mean, he's down at the the river. He's over at Winsel's. I mean, but these are New York Times bestsellers, and everything is about the sheriff's office, the prosecutor's office, and all out of Marshall County, Alabama. And I thought, you know what? Steve needs to know about this.
I'll take a look. Hey, in all that free time I got right now, excited to be able to look at it. Hey, it's been an absolute joy to be a prosecutor for most of my professional career. Some of the greatest influences of my life for law enforcement and victims I've had a chance to come into contact with. And the people of Marshall County trusted me and raised me in this world, and really thankful for all the investment they made.
Well, thank you for making time for us today, Mr. Attorney General. We'll have you back on again sometime soon, and we'll talk then.
Thank you much.
Take care. All right, that's it. We're taking a break right now. We'll come right back. That's Steve Marshall, Attorney General for the state of Alabama, longest serving in Alabama modern history, and running for the U.S. Senate. There is not a single person running for that office right now that is not quality. And there's a few more that are talking about it. I don't know much about them yet, but I'll tell you right now, Alabamians, you got a deep bench. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Relationship, with a catch. It was relationship with purpose. And also, oh, by the way, if you don't love Jesus, I'm still going to love you.
Yeah.
So it was true friendship. But we earned the right to share our faith, we called it. And there's a passage of Scripture just came to me while we're sitting here talking, hearing you say it. I believe it's in Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians. It says, because we loved you so much, we were content not just to share the gospel, but our very lives as well.
Yeah.
Meaning the gospel's really important, but I'm even going to share who I am in a relationship with you. That's where Charles was, it sounds like.
Yep, 100%.
Very cool. All right, so you're hanging out with Charles.
Hanging out with Charles. We're at Walsenburg about a year in. I don't remember exactly how it breaks down. He gets shipped to Sterling Correctional Facility. So I'm there on my own. Huerfano County Correctional Center in Walsenburg was a private prison. So it was like Corporations Correction of America, or I guess they call it some other company now, Core Civic. It was one of those prisons, and it got shut down. And so I get moved to Benton County, which is another Core Civic prison. It was Corrections Corporation of America at the time. I'm there for 6 months, and then they moved me to Canyon City, to Arrowhead Correctional Center, which is like Camp Cupcake. Okay, and so they moved me to Camp Cupcake, and they didn't know they made a mistake with my sentence and how much time I have. I'm not allowed to be at Camp Cupcake, right? I'm not supposed to be. And I'm there for like 2 months, and it's up in the mountains in Canyon City, Colorado. I'm like, man, I can get used to this. It was like God gave me a little vacation, and then once they figured it out, they ended up shipping me to Sterling Correctional Facility. I walk out on the yard at Sterling Correctional Facility, which is a massive prison, right? There's 4 separate yards, so I didn't have to land on the yard with him. But I walk out on they call it the 20s yard where I was, and boom, there's Charles.
How about that?
Right away. So
back together again.
Yeah.
Pick up where you left off.
Yeah, and he was a softball coach. That was his way of doing evangelism. He put together a softball team, and it was like, is it? I remember how shocked I was when I walked into a medium security prison. So there's like killers and everything in this prison, and there's a softball team which requires these things called metal bats. I'm like, they have metal bats in prison? Like, that seems counterintuitive.
Who thought this was okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he did. He coached a softball team, and I was the third baseman, and that was his way that he would evangelize guys. And so I get to Sterling, and he's like, hey, what was great about Sterling is they had grass. So I was excited to play softball there, but that's neither here nor there. And so he's like, man, you want to play softball again? Yeah. So he's just doing the same thing, friends, ministering, planting seeds. And he goes, man, Brian, you got parole coming up in a couple of years. You really need to get you some certificates for the parole board. I'm like, great. And he's like, well, I'm the chaplain's assistant. I can get you into some programs. And the chaplain's office was over all the programs, secular or otherwise. I'm like, cool, yeah, get me in. And he gets me into them, and it's they're faith-based programs.
Ah.
And so I got in there, and I'm like, Charles. So I get
snuck
in.
that gospel in on you again.
He did. And but it was really interesting. And I get in there, and the first program was like Kumbaya, come as you are. It was very, it was not very high theology. It was not rigorous. It was just like, we want to love on you. But in that program, there was like 5 or 6 other guys that were like Charles, guys who'd been down for like 20 years that were men, and they were steeped in the word. And I got around those guys, and I'm just like, geez, like I'm drawn to this, but I can't admit it. And so that program ends, and I went to Charles. I'm like, hey man, I think I need some more certificates for the parole board. And he's like, okay,
wink, wink, nod, nod.
And so he gets me into this next one. Well, it was very high theology, and it was very rigorous, and it was very much, this is what the Word of God says. It's called The Truth Project with Dr. Del Tackett, which is Christian Worldview and Apologetics.
I got it written down. I was going to ask you about it.
So good. Like, I highly recommend everything Del Tackett does. Everyone should just go and look at all of it. I mean, he did Answers in Genesis. He does The Truth Project. He's got, so many great things. Watch, but what this one's Christian Worldview and Apologetics. You come in, you watch an hour-long video, and then you have an hour-long table discussion afterwards. And I would watch the hour-long video that was, this is what the Word of God says, this is this, but it's like applying it to creation and politics and culture. And it was
giving you a base.
Yeah, and it was so good. Yeah, so good. But when you're not a Christian, it's not so good, right? And so I'm like, this is bullcrap. I hate this. You guys are stupid. And I did. I told those guys at the table, if you believe this crap, you guys are idiots. You're stupid. And I always tell people, it's like, just because they're Christians doesn't mean they're not convicts, okay? And so, like, you tell someone, even us, like, if someone came up and, like, put their finger in our face and said, you're stupid for believing Jesus, I don't know. I hope that I wouldn't punch him in the face, right? But so here I am in prison doing just that, and Charles is just done. He's just like throwing his hands in the air. He's like, oh my gosh. And so this goes on for like 2 or 3 weeks where I'm like full tilt arguing with these guys. And we walk back to the unit, and so here's the education building. Our unit's over here, and there's a sidewalk that you got to walk around like that. And we're walking back, and we get to about right here, and Charles just looks over at me, and he says,
And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just giving you all the truth you can slap on a bumper sticker. That's what we're doing. I got a ton of text messages to catch up on. If you want to text it on in and give me your thoughts, it's 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it, call it, same number for both. Going way back in the line here, let's see what Brian from Harvest had to say. He said, when I mentioned Tyson, ties in to everything, they'll always change. Okay, what's he do? Okay, is this the guy? This is Brian who had I didn't know what he was talking about. He was listing an act that was passed in 2012, and he said he was saying that they'll always change under the Obama administration, giving the media permission to lie for the government. Oh, okay. Brian, appreciate the clarification, and thank you very much. Bobby from Huntsville says, I guess the next thing the Democrats are going to tell us about are all the fish that die from the drugs in the water. Poof. What was that a reply to?
Whenever we blow up these cartel ships, it's like, but the fish.
The environmentalists are going to be out. I tell you, I guess Greta Thunberg is going to have to start sailing the waters off Venezuela
whenever she gets out of Israeli custody.
That's
of
true.
Course.
It's very tough to be Greta right now. Chris from Athens just wants you to know, if Vandy beats Alabama, you should make JP wear a Vandy shirt.
That's one a little bit more reasonable of a bet than Georgia or Auburn or Tennessee. But
so you're saying you'd wear it?
Well, if you had a Vandy shirt, maybe.
They have a logo that looks similar to the Rightside logo.
Now it does. The revamped one does.
It does. Connor from Huntsville says, hey, JP, Connor from Huntsville, is there any worse sports city than Philadelphia? I mean, I never pull for any Philly teams because all their fan bases are just nasty.
Absolutely. You're correct. Oh, my goodness. Philly fans, whenever they started getting good again recently, and the Braves and them went head-to-head in the division, oh, my goodness. I forgot how awful Philly fans are. And I was at a Braves-Philly postseason game in 2023 and was just reminded of that with all the Philly fans that were there. They are just the worst. But it's not just the Phillies. It's the 76ers, across the board. So, and the Eagles. So, yeah, 100%. I agree.
So Philly fans are to pro sports what LSU fans are to the NCAA.
Tennessee.
Do you think Tennessee's worse?
Philly and Tennessee fans are the two worst sports
I would have
fans.
never said Tennessee.
Oh, they take the cake for sure. LSU fans are just obnoxious in general because they're Cajun, but they could be fun and like inflammatory. Tennessee fans, they take pride in being the worst fans in college football. Like, me saying that just gives them a badge of honor because they want to be the worst. They just, yeah. But Philly fans are just like that. They want to be the most obnoxious and worst fans.
Okay, so basically what just happened is you got your button pushed, and I understand. Alan from Tanner just signed up for the newsletter. That's a great thing. I forgot about that, so I need to say it once in a while. Listen, if you would like to get our Right Side report that comes out every day by email, it gives you like all the latest things on our social media, podcasts that are out, things that have been written, and links to the show and what's going to be said about, you get the triple dipper ahead of time. All that. It's basically, it's a really high quality daily newsletter. All you got to do is go to the same number you've been texting in, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT, and text the single word newsletter, and boom, you get a automatic reply that gives you the link to sign up for the newsletter. No cost. We don't sell the list. It's just a Right Side report. We'd love to have you on it. Thousands are already on it. Dave from Capshaw says, today I'm hanging out at Fiddler's Convention in Athens, so I have to catch up on the podcast later. Well, cool. So I'm taking it that you do be a fiddler, and I'm glad to hear it. All right, get some scratch. There you go. John from Huntsville. JP, if Alabama plays Vanderbilt the same way they played Georgia, Vanderbilt will easily beat them. JP explained to me how Alabama scored 0 points in the second half against Georgia, even when they got to start the second half with the football. They scored the same amount of points as I did in the second half.
Georgia's much better than Vandy, by the way, just FYI.
All right. More texts, and I got some good stuff. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Why don't you give him a chance? Why don't you give him a chance? Jesus being to give him a chance, right? And for whatever reason, in God's sovereignty, as I look at it, that was the moment, okay? And all my guard, all my defensive mechanisms, for whatever reason, I just said, okay. And kind of as I said earlier, I knew God was real, but I didn't understand Jesus. And he's asking me to give Jesus a chance, not God, but Jesus, which was different. I said, okay. So I went back to my cell and prayed, as I often did. And I said, God, if I need to believe this Jesus character was truly your son, these were my problems with Jesus, okay? And it turns out they're pretty big issues. Said if this Jesus character was truly your son, that he was born of a virgin, that he lived a perfect, I'm scoffing as I say all this, I'm like, he lived a perfect life, that he died and his death did something for me, and that he rose from the dead. God, if I need to believe that to be okay with you, I need you to show me something because I'm having a really hard time with this. So I go to sleep that night and I have a horrible, horrible nightmare. I mean, it was a crazy nightmare and I still remember like a lot of it, which is crazy, but it didn't make a lot of sense what was happening in it, like fat flashing faces. It even felt demonic, right?
Well, it probably was.
Yeah. And I'm falling off of a cliff at the end of it. And right before I hit the ground, I wake up. Like when you're falling in a
like
dream.
real life wake up.
Yeah, like
Okay.
wake up, whoa. And the only thing I can see, it's completely dark in the cells, and we have those old red digital clocks, right? And so the only thing you can see in the room when I wake up is the red digital clock, and it says 3:16.
Huh.
And the only Bible verse I've ever known my entire life is John 3:16, and it just, boom, right? And that was the answer to my question, right? For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. You asked, I answered, buddy. It's Sunday morning at 3:16 in the morning. What are you going to do? I guess I'm going to church. So I did. I waited till 8, and I went to Christian services, as they call it in prison, because they have to be politically correct. Went to Christian services, and, I don't remember. I sat as far off to the back, to the side as I could with my friend Ramon that was on the softball team. Ramon's such a cool dude. He's a giant black dude, just yoked. I'm talking like waist this big, perfect six-pack, pecs this big, arms just huge, dude. And I had this thing where, and it was a problem in prison. It's the Ned Flanders Christianity. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. If you ever watched The Simpsons, Ned Flanders. Oh, yeah. Okay, so like okie diddly okie doke. It's like this soft kind of weak, effeminate, gay thing. Like a lot of Christians, they're like nicer than God and holier than Jesus. You know what I mean? It's just a weird thing, and so. I always rubbed me the wrong way, but here's Ramon, this dude, anyway, I'm not gonna, he's not that guy. That's what I'll say, right? And he was the guy that brought the blood gang from California to Colorado, cold-blooded killer until God got a hold of him. And now he's like the prison evangelist. These young guys come in, and he was in Unit 21, which is where you go when you first get to Sterling. And then from Unit 21, you get sent out to all the other buildings. But they kept him in there, and these new guys would come in, specifically young black guys, and he would body him up and be like, this is the gospel. You know what I mean? And it was crazy. It was really interesting. So anyway, this is the guy that I went to go sit in church with, because I don't want to be around any of the Ned Flanders guys. You know what I mean? And I wasn't going to let Charles think that he won, And so I sit off to the side in the back. And I don't remember anything Chaplain Davis said. I don't remember what the sermon was on at all. But at the end, he says, all right, guys, we're going to do an invitation. I look over at Ramon. I'm like, brother, what's an invitation? I just knew he was going to be like, brother, that's where you invite Jesus into your heart. But that's not what he said. He said, brother, if you got something hindering your relationship with God, you can go down there and pray with that man about it. And he stepped aside because he already knew that God was on me, as they say in the South. I've learned some Alabama euphemisms. God was on me like a pack of dogs on a three-legged cat. Anyway, so I walk the aisle, as it were, the proverbial aisle. Get down there. Chaplain Davis grabs my hand, puts his other hand on my shoulder. He says, Mr. Dawson, how can I pray for you? So look, chap, I'm not here to make any decisions. I just want to pray that God would soften my heart so the truth can come in, because I feel him working on me, but I'm fighting him with everything I have. And we get done praying, and he's just got tears pouring down his face. And
hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all are talking about this show. This show goes like from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. Benning and big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. This is the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web and logging in every single day on the live stream, looking right inside the studio, audio and video. And oh, by the way, that's on places like X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then you podcasters, you guys that catch it after the fact, appreciate y'all just as much. Doesn't matter to me where y'all catch the show. The reality is the fact that you catch it is what matters, and y'all listen, and that gives us the reason to come back and do it again the next day. So thank you very much for what you do. Let me get some text messages again and get those caught up. We got a brand new listener named L.A. from Trinity. So L.A. from Trinity, thanks for joining the text lines. He says, he, she, we don't know. I tell you what, L.A., if you wouldn't mind, tell us, is you a he or a she, so we know how to refer. But it says, hey, Phil, why can't the Republicans pass this bill with a majority vote? Okay, because the majority is all that's required for the actual passage of the bill, the continuing resolution itself. But you can't get there until you pass the procedural votes that allow it to go to final passage. I know it sounds like layers, but it is. The procedural vote is the one that ends the debate and brings that to a close so you can bring the actual bill up and vote on it. The procedural vote requires 60, and we don't have 60 in the Senate. So that's the deal. You got to have 60 to get past the procedural votes. In this case, it's called invoking cloture or ending debate. And until they get to a 60, which means they have to have some Democrats join them, you can't get to the one that requires simple majority. We'll see how long they want to keep this going, but I suspect they're only going to go for a few more days. I don't think it's going to last that much longer. Shag Nasty, the atheist. Shag, what do you got? Shag Nasty, the atheist, is just going all in right now. Says, well, actually, Shag, your text got all kind of broken up, so I can't tell
His
which
first
one
one is the TPUSA one.
Okay, TPUSA is a hate group, and our country is screwed. Okay, and then he says, as the old saying goes, there's no hate like Christian love. Okay, all right. And then it says, can y'all shut up? We have the highest deficit ever recorded under Trump. Well, he's only been in office 10 months, so I would like to point out that a lot of that came in because of Biden spending. Shag, your memory needs to be worked on. Then he gives me a long quote from Barry Goldwater, which is all jammed up because it's like broken into 2 or 3 different texts. It says, frankly, these people frighten me. Politics and governing demand compromise, but these Christians believe they are acting in the name of God. Shag, what are you doing? Everything is not about your antithetical atheist beliefs. Sometimes you can also have just common sense. If you don't believe the same way I do, that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father except by him, and that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever should believe in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you don't believe that, that's your choice. You're still allowed to have common sense. You apparently lack. David at Bucky's says, Phil, I'll never implant a chip in me. I won't even use a smartwatch. I feel like using a smartwatch for payments is just desensitizing us for the mark of the beast. A chip is one step after a smartwatch. Brother, I'm with you. And the fact that they can put chips in dogs and pets, yep, it's just putting an AirPod under your skin is all we're talking about. But you know what? I can see how that would be required for you to be proving that you're a legal citizen as opposed to an illegal alien, right? So keep a track of that. Marshall from Dubai says, welcome back to Alabama from New York, Phil. Thank you, sir. Said, I'm finally over my jet lag, kinda. I heard you and JP trying to figure out what I do for a living. I'm a door-to-door salesman of suntan lotion and sunscreen, and business is good. Keep up the good work. Somehow, I don't believe that's true.
Maybe that's code.
Karen R from Rogersville says, what was the name of the author in the book series Phil spoke of with Steve Marshall? The author has a number of books out, but the ones that I was talking about are what's known as his Rich series. He has one character named Jason Rich, who I'll be honest with you, is Alexander Shannara. That's all it is. He's a billboard lawyer who has billboards all over the state, but he's from Guntersville. And so the author's name is Robert Bailey. I think the first one is called Rich Blood. The second one's called Rich Water. And the next one's called Rich Justice, I think. I'm on the third book right now. I usually read fiction to fall asleep at night. And so, yeah, Robert Bailey, and he's actually an attorney in Huntsville. And he writes all his books centered around Huntsville, Decatur, Gadsden, Marshall County. It's crazy. I mean, I know all the places in the book. It's almost like weird when I drive through Guntersville now. Gary M.S. from Huntsville says, again, I just walked in. This time, Steve Marshall. What author was Phil talking about? Okay.
There you go.
I think I just got it. Robert Bailey. Joe in Tennessee says, we thought Philly was the city of brotherly love. I think we were trying to say. Their mayor can't even spell Eagles. I remember that. That was hilarious.
Oh, that was great.
That was crazy.
I think it said EALGE. Oh, wait.
Yeah, like total struggle. Like, don't chew gummies before you do your press conference next time. JT from Lacey Springs says, Phil, JP, and all have a great weekend. Shag Nasty, since you listen to Rightside Radio, it means there's hope for you.
Amen.
There you go. Fritzy from Huntsville says, Colonel, just heard an estimated 20,000 Army soldiers literally live paycheck to paycheck. If this shutdown lasts over a pay period or more, we're going to have some serious consequences to navigate. JP, don't be so hard on the balls. Fritzy.
Sorry, I can't do.
Holy cow. And then last one, I did get text thanks from Gary MS and Karen about the author's name. And then Jeff from Indiana says, hey, Phil, if Shag Nasty had common sense, he'd be a Republican. Well, there you go.
And a Christian. Sorry.
Okay, well, that too. And then Kelly from Killen says, hey, guys, headed home from work, Decatur. Loving the show as always. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. We appreciate you, man, very much. Hey, I got to do something real quick. We got time for this? I think we do. I had a whole segment on woke wars. I'm not going to get to it, obviously. We had too much content today and guests and things. But I've got this crazy story. So Senator Josh Hawley, who I've really gotten to where I like the way he does stuff. Senator Josh Hawley was in a Senate Judiciary Committee meeting, and he had a former Biden administration official who, a guy named Gregory Jackson. Gregory Jackson used to serve as the deputy director of the Biden White House's Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Okay, let that sink in. And he also is now the Community Justice Action Fund head. Okay. And they got into a verbal shooting match. Let me rephrase that. They got into a verbal shouting match.
There you go.
Thank you. Back and forth, because Hawley was asking him, keep in mind, this is woke wars, all right? This is dealing with the woke and calling it out when you see it and pushing it back into its place. He was calling him out about things that were in the reports and the filings that he had when he was working at the White House. And the senator wanted to know, what in God's name does it mean that you were doing something as a safe space initiative for two-spirit people? Listen to this exchange in the Senate Judiciary. Go ahead.
Approach is defunding the police, which is what this says. The entire time. This is so typical of what the Democrats do now. After your policies have transparently failed and led to the deaths of millions of Americans, now you say you've never heard of defunding the police. Your own report recommends it on page after page after page. Let me ask about something else you say. Here's what you say we ought to invest in. Instead of funding the police, here's what we ought to invest in. We need to invest in programs that acknowledge the need for safe space initiatives led by lesbian, gay, bisexual, two-spirit, trans, and gender nonconforming people. What's two-spirit?
Well, look, I don't know exactly. You guys are pulling some interesting quotes.
This is from your report.
If you look at the report, the focus is on investing in violence intervention, outreach workers.
What is you say that you shouldn't invest in the police, but we ought to invest in two-spirit community programs that acknowledge two-spirit individuals.
We are not going to discriminate
what is that?
We're not going to discriminate against any nonprofit that
what
wants
is
to help us prevent violence in
What
our
is
community.
two-spirit? You say don't fund the police, but do fund programs that create safe spaces for two-spirit people. What is? I just want to know. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is.
Well, I honestly, I'm not completely aware of the language or
you
the
wrote
spirit
the
of how that was
report?
written. But what I'm telling you is that what is
a two-spirit individual? I mean, really, this is your policymaker's playbook. You are the witness called by the Democrats on this committee, so I assume you reflect their views. Well, you don't want to fund the police. You want to fund safe spaces for two-spirit individuals. What is a two-spirit person?
I feel like I'm looking at a two-faced individual because you talk about
Oh,
reducing
no, sir.
violence.
You're looking at somebody who's
You're also
reading you
speaking
your
out
own
against
words, and I'd
violence
like to hear an
prevention
answer.
programs.
Here's the answer. The answer is you don't have any solutions. You want to invest in gobbledygook and take away money from police officers who actually keep our communities safe, and when you're called on the record, you deny it.
That is amazing. And Hawley just wore him out. And the guy goes, I see a two-faced individual. I mean, come on. This is the idea. So listen, this is the stuff, y'all. This is the stuff that our tax dollars were going to in the last administration. Safe space initiatives for two-spirit individuals from the office of the White House Gun Violence Prevention Team. What does that even mean? I don't know, but that same office was calling for defunding the police. And, you know, the libs will say, we never called for defunding the police. I'm sorry. And you know what? You know why libs of TikTok became famous? Because all it did was show you what they said. It didn't do anything else. It didn't have narrative. It didn't have op-eds. It didn't have anything else. It didn't make its own videos. It just showed you what they said about themselves. Woke Wars is just showing people what woke does. And they can't even answer their own questions. I got to go to the phones real quick before I run out of time. I got about a minute and a half. Is that Allie? Allie from Athens. Hey, my friend, how you doing?
Hey, if I could quit laughing long enough to tell you about a cool thing that happened in Athens today besides the Fiddlers Convention, there is a Hallmark-like movie that is called A Kangaroo Christmas that was filmed on the east side of the courthouse today. Mayor Ronnie Marks had a part in it. It had a live kangaroo. And the cool thing is that the fellow Branson Richmond, who used to be in an action series in the 90s called Renegade, he's the guy that's directing and producing. He's got other crew as well. And they wanted to make films that are family friendly and make sense. So I don't think they're going to be doing the two-spirit thing.
No, there are no safe space initiatives for two-spirit in Athens, Alabama. I don't see that happening.
Two-spirit kangaroos. Anyway, it should be out around Christmas time, and it's called A Kangaroo Christmas.
Wow, very cool. Right there in Athens, huh?
With a real kangaroo. I got to pet it.
You know, when I was in the and I got to go real quick, but when I was in the Alabama Senate, I voted for a piece of legislation that incentivized the making of movies in Alabama, giving tax credits for them to do that. So glad to hear we got one. There you go.
Yep.
All right, Allie, got to go into a break. Thank you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're taking a break. We'll come right back. Last break of the day on a Friday afternoon. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back.
Chapman Davis is not a tears down the face guy. He's not a hugger. He's not a crier. He's just, he's a man. And again, I'm a man and I hug and I cry, but he's not that kind of man. And to see him weeping in front of 130 inmates, I was like, what just happened? And I count that the moment that God saved me. And so I leave there, and Charles gives me a Bible, Thomas Nelson, New King James Bible. Here you go. And I said, start reading the story of Joseph. And so I get back to my cell, and I start reading the story of Joseph, and I'm hooked. I can't get enough, feasting on God's word. And that goes on for about 9 months. It went on long past that, but about 9 months into me feasting on God's word, really just being shaped and molded by his word, loving it, feasting on it, it changing me.
Mm-hmm.
About 9 months into that, I look around, and all my friends in there have pen pals. They've got some girl they're writing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, let's see. So I call my mom. My mom was running a Facebook page for me, and so what that looks like is she logs in, but the account she logs into has my picture on it, where I'm not in prison. That's my bait. Look, I'm not in prison, but I really am. And so she's running this Facebook page.
So your mom's catfishing for you.
She's catfishing for me, yeah. And we were very unsuccessful at first, and so I say, basically, look, don't reach out to these girls. They're from my bad past.
It's cool that your mom was doing that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we reached out to all these girls that were healthy and went to college and weren't drug addicts. Well, I don't know if you know this about healthy girls who aren't drug addicts. They're not real big on writing guys in prison. So those, You have to pick one or the other. You can either have the unhealthy girl that'll write.
I've never
you
studied that, but I can imagine it. Yeah,
no,
okay.
it's there. And so I struck out completely, and I said, "Okay, God, I can't take any more rejection. If you want me to have a pen pal, you're going to have to do it because I'm done."
We're talking old school. Write it down on a piece of paper, pen pal.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, everybody in there. Yeah,
put it in an envelope, snail mail it out. Yep.
Correct. Yep. And
the prison probably has to read your letter to make sure it doesn't say anything, right?
I think they read a lot more of the ingoing than they do the outbound, but it depends. Like if you're writing from prison to prison, they read both. Like they have some system. I don't know how they do it, but there's definitely people who wrote some stuff they shouldn't have that got in trouble, and I can't remember which direction the mail was going. But you don't seal it.
Yeah.
You put it in there and it's open. I remember that now that you say that, because I always say, "Oh yeah, I sealed it," but I actually no, you don't. You put your thing in there and you put your stamp on it and you drop it in the mailbox, and then they go through and open it and look at it and then send it out. So forgot about that now that you bring that up. So no one wants to write me. Said, "Okay, God, you're going to have to do it." Told my mom I'm done, whatever. And so I don't know, 2-3 weeks, maybe it was a month, I don't know, goes by. I say, call my mom just to check in, see how she's doing. And she goes, "Hey, Brian, do you know this girl named Christina Ewan?" I said, "Yes, ma'am."
You've known her for a long time.
A long time. So Christina Ewan, back in Derby, Kansas, where my dad was. Said we grew up together. I was head over heels in love with her. All throughout middle school and high school. We went to 8th grade graduation dance together. After that was the first of many times I professed my undying love to her. And I always say that she gave me the Heisman. Was like, I just want to be friends. Just
friend zone.
Friends. And so I got friend zoned hardcore. And that went on literally from 8th grade to the beginning of 12th grade before I left Derby. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, if you laid out all my yearbooks from kindergarten to 12th grade and said you can pick one girl to marry, it's Christina every single time. She's like, "Oh, okay, well," I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, she wants to write you." Excuse me? I said, "Well, yeah, Christina wants to write you." I was like, "Does she know I'm in prison?" "Yeah, she knows you're in prison." "Okay, well, that's
Despite the picture on the Facebook page,
yeah,
I actually am in prison wearing greens right now.
Correct. And so that's it. So my mom's catching the thing where Christina's thinking she's messaging me. So that's how that happened. So Christina is on Facebook, and Brian Dawson shows up as a suggested friend. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't talked to Brian in 10 years. Clicks, sends a message. And then my mom's like, "Actually, this isn't Brian. This is Brian's mom. He's in prison." To which most women say, "Oh, dear God," and would run.
Yeah,
but
unfriend.
Not Christina. And she said, "Well, I'd love to write him." And so again, I said, "God, you're going to have to do it." And God did it. Right? I didn't send her a friend request. We didn't reach out to her. She found me and reached out to me.
Yeah.
And my mom said, "Hey, this is what's going on." She said, "I want to write him." So God did that. And so I got her address from my mom and wrote her the first letter, though. And said, "Look, I didn't get drunk and run somebody's dog over. Like, this isn't like some fluke thing. Like you hear about this weird guy that got thrown, like never did anything wrong.
And
now
really
he's in prison.
for reasons.
Yeah, I belong here. I earned it.
Like real prison reasons.
Correct. And so I said, but God has saved me and I am changed. And everybody in here says that, by the way, but like I'm an open book and I'm willing to prove it to you. And she writes me back. And again, in my mind, she was, the girl that she was in middle school and high school. I mean, she was just perfect, like in every way.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Going to the phones here momentarily, but let me get a couple quick texts. Joe in Tennessee says, "I think the Two Spirits deals show that the liberals are using a lot of LSD." Got a little something hallucinogenic going on, I'd say. And then John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says JP gets an A- for his just okay performance because there was a little too much Saban talk, if you ask me. Butters and Lee from Huntsville, and Steve Marshall get an A+ for their absolutely brilliant performances, which means today's winner is obviously the incredible Phil Williams for his absolutely perfect A+ performance. Thank you. Congratulations. Have a good weekend. By the way, JP, doesn't Vandy national champions have a great ring to it? John Paul from Huntsville.
Not really.
All right, listen, I got to go to the phones right now because you know who's on. It's Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing real well. I'm almost out of the gauntlet anyway.
Well, nice. So you're not calling in from Bowling Green already, but you're definitely on the flip side, huh?
Well, I'm still in 5 lanes of traffic, but it's moving anyway.
Well, good
Maybe it's
enough.
because all the federal workers are off today.
Oh, you know what? I don't know. I mean, is there a big batch of that in Nashville? I don't know, but
I
yeah.
don't know.
If you were driving through Washington D.C., I'd say yes.
But Phil, you talking about these two-spirit people. I can't believe you don't know what that is.
I'm sorry. I should know better.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, you're a two-spirit person.
Well, listen, I don't know that I cotton to where you're going here, but tell me what you're thinking.
Well, yeah, you have your spirit and the Holy Spirit. So
well, that's true. You know what? Okay, I will go ahead and accede to your wisdom on that one. That is true.
So next time you get on CNN, tell them that you're a two-spirit person, and then watch them look at you like you're insane, and then tell them that, and then they'll really be mad at you.
That would go over like a turd in a punch bowl, I'm pretty sure.
I think it probably would. I like pushing a Tomahawk missile into a drug.
Oh, that was literally that was a lot of fun. That was the one where I saw Abby's face when I said that about launching the Tomahawk cruise missile into a Colombian drug lord's drug lab, and I saw in the back of her eyes, you could tell she was like, all of a sudden she's thinking, oh geez.
I thought they was all gonna lose their mind.
But you know what? I'm not on there so I can just be the guy who blends into the background. I'm not on there so I can be the one who is the Mr. Moderate. I'm the solid conservative, just plain right guy.
Oh yeah, and I like the lieutenant governor from New York there too. She was
wow.
She's a strange bird, that's for sure.
Listen, bro, I couldn't tell where we were going sometimes. I mean, in fact, like one minute she's on my side, the next minute I'm thinking, I don't know where she is right now.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if she was from Illinois, where it's legal to smoke over there.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I could have sworn before the show I read that she was a Democrat, because I kind of tried to check up and see who my panelists are going to be, and I could have sworn that I read that she was the Democrat lieutenant governor. And then JP said today, no, she's Republican. But there were, even still in my mind last night, I was still confused because I felt like we went back and forth.
Well, when you're from New York, you got to kind of halfway hang on the Democrat side just to get elected if you're Republican. I don't think they're too conservative.
Maybe she's a political two-spirit.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. Go ahead.
But the wife enjoyed it when you told the guy sitting beside you there, there was still time for him.
Oh, when we're talking about God, and I said there's a cure for that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a cure for that.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually a good dude. We talk a lot off the air, and he's very sociable. He gets animated on the show and then lightens up and yucks it up during the breaks. It's almost like, maybe he's two-spirit. I don't know.
Yeah. If he just knew what he was talking about, everything would be good then, wouldn't it?
No doubt. No doubt. All right, man. Well, listen, you have a great weekend, my brother. We'll have you back on again Monday, I expect. But in the meantime, be safe on the road, and we will talk to you soon.
All right, bud. I sent you a little something in your text there.
All right.
You might want to look at that.
I will take a look.
Have a good one.
Take care.
See you.
All right. Listen, we got a great week pending next week. I don't know for a fact. We're still scheduling some things. CNN's asked me to come back, but they asked for days that I have to check on other things first, because I can't just leave responsibilities unfilled. So nonetheless, there may be some days next week that I am doing the same thing, running back and forth to CNN. But we'll cover down on what we have to cover down on to make sure the message gets out, won't we? Because by golly, there are more people, more on our side. There's more of us than there are of them. God's still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you Monday.